Chairman, I noticed on November 5th, that's election day. I think that
Hearing none, a motion would be in order to approve the regular meeting schedule.
so moved.
So moved by Mr. Crittenden,
I'll second it.
second by Mr. Jesse. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jesse,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Bill Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Crittenden,
Yes,
Mr. Don Harris.
Yes, motion's approved for the regular scheduled meetings for the Board of Supervisors. Okay, item number E is assigned committee appointments by the chairman. I think I've already pre-warned you that I see no need to change the committee assignments that were from our past year, and if there's no objections, I'd like to pass that as we are now. Any discussion? And that basically is we're changing Friday, we're taking Friday off the schedule and changing some dates on that. All right, a motion would be in order to approve the committee appointments by the chairman.
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Bill Harris,
Second.
second by Mr. Reggie Williams. Thank you, gentlemen. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Bill Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Crittenden,
yes,
Mr. Jesse,
Yes.
Mr. Don Harris.
Yes, motion's approved for the committee appointments. That doesn't say that you may be added to something at a later date, but we're going to go with the same schedule of where we were.
Can you confirm who made that motion? Bill made the
Bill-
motion?
And
Bill
Reggie
Mary-
seconded.
Okay,
Yes.
Mr. Okay, thanks.
No problem. All right. Now we would have the approval of the consent agenda. Could I get a motion for that, please?
I'll make a motion. to approve the
Motion
consent
by
agenda.
Wayne Jesse,
second,
second by Randy Crittenden. Any additions to any of the minutes? Hear none, seeing none.
There is one correction that I think I'm going to cover under my manager's report or administrator's report regarding the meeting time of the board and the school board regarding the high school renovation.
Fine, we'll take that under your staff reports,
Yeah, we'll
please.
take that under. I think the minutes reflect that as being 6 p.m., but everyone's schedules had it at 4:30. I confirmed that that's what the school board has is 4:30, but we can talk about that later.
on the
Okay,
22nd.
On the 22nd at the High School Media Center.
okay. No further discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bill Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Crittenden,
Yes,
Mr. Jesse,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Don Harris.
Yes. Motion's approved for the approval of the consent agenda. Okay. Moving right along, public comments.
Yes. As a reminder, each speaker will give his or her name and address for the record. Each speaker is given one opportunity to speak. Comments and remarks must be addressed to the Board of Supervisor, not the audience. And at this time, I only have one registered public speaker for his or her 3 minutes. Thank you, Kevin.
And that is not me, but I do want to say, for those that are watching at home, there was a small technical audio glitch at the very beginning of the stream, so they may have missed a little bit at the beginning. I apologize. But it should be working now.
Thank you, Kevin. My first registered public speaker is Kimberly Dania of Urbana.
Good afternoon.
Did you need my name in full and address?
Please.
My name's Kimberly Dina, and I live at 390 Rappahannock Avenue in Urbana.
Thank you. Proceed, please.
I'm following up on my request to the board from last month. Both the sheriff and the board have rejected in writing my attempt to submit a police misconduct complaint, the board after they were informed that the sheriff had already turned me away. Nonetheless, I am preparing another complaint to submit in person as instructed by the board. However, I also pulled the internal affairs policy of the sheriff's office, which states, the sheriff's office must competently and impartially investigate all allegations of misfeasance, malfeasance, nonfeasance by personnel, and complaints bearing on the office's response to community needs. It is the policy of the Middlesex Sheriff's Office to investigate all complaints of misconduct reported by a citizen or appointees. The Sheriff's Office encourages citizens to bring forward legitimate grievances regarding misconduct by its personnel. The Sheriff's Office personnel shall receive all complaints courteously and shall forward all complaints to the sheriff or chief deputy immediately. Complaints in person, by mail, email, or by phone can be made at any time. As part of the follow-up investigation, anyone making complaints by mail or phone normally shall be interviewed and a written signed complaint prepared. Normally, a citizen with a complaint shall be referred to the sheriff or chief deputy who shall assist the citizen in recording pertinent information. The chief deputy shall at least conduct a preliminary investigation. Every effort shall be made to facilitate the convenient, courteous, and prompt receipt and processing of citizen complaints. An appointee of the sheriff's office who interferes with, discourages, or delays the making of complaints shall be subject to disciplinary action. As mentioned previously, the board's code of ethics states that they will uphold the Constitution, laws, and regulations of the United States and all governments therein, and never knowingly be a party to their evasion. And when any misconduct, neglect of duty, or corruption is discovered, the members of the board, as a body, will pursue and respond appropriately. When some of the highest members of our government and judicial system aren't held accountable to their own department policies and oaths, when the board does not form a law enforcement civilian oversight board pursuant to Virginia Code, when they don't provide funding for equipment such as body-worn cameras and dash cams, and they allow the sheriff's office to have an unwritten policy that prevents citizens from recording police activities, where is the accountability for local officers? How are incidents to be tracked and patterns noticed? How are the citizens of this county to be protected from abuse? These aren't rhetorical questions. Middlesex residents deserve the answers. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your comments. Have you filed the proper paperwork?
So, as stated,
That's a yes or no.
yes, and it was rejected, and I'm preparing a second round of paperwork as well.
Great, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't have any other noted speakers. Is there anybody else who was wishing to speak?
Anybody else wishing? Come forward, please, ma'am, and state your name and where you live, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Betsy Liljeberg. I live at 983 Wilton Coves Drive in Hartfield. And I wanted to thank you for your service as on the board. I also wanted to introduce myself. The board appointed me to the Middle Peninsula Northern Neck Behavioral Health a year ago, and I've been a little remiss in coming in person to introduce myself. So I just wanted to let you know who I am. And to thank you, Middlesex County was one of the first to agree to the increases in the costs for programming for the coming year. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, and thanks for being here. It's nice to put a face to a name. All right, moving right along. Any other speakers today? Seeing none, hearing none, I will close the public comment section. Constitutional officers, item number 4 on your agenda. Treasurer report is a report only. Commissioner of Revenue is a report only. Sheriff's Office renovation, right-of-way agreements, and Mr. Burton, you have the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You kept the chair. I'll take the podium.
Yeah, take the podium. That'd be better.
My name is Ben Burton. As you all know, I'm the senior engineer with Bay Design Group. I'm here to bring you up to date on the status of the Middlesex County Sheriff's Office renovation, and in particular talk about four change orders that need the board's approval plus there is discussion or need for your authorization and signature of right-of-way agreements for Dominion Power to bring power, three-phase power to the building. I believe you all have seen the memorandum that I prepared on December 18th. Basically, the site infrastructure is about 85% complete. HRSD pump station is going to be active, may already be active to serve this project. And the new interior construction is well underway, and the county IT staff and the contractor are working well to get those pieces of work done. All in all, the projected substantial completion is still in early April of 2025. We've had several applications for payment. You see those itemized on the memorandum. Approximately, well, it's 300, just a little over 300,000 was the latest application for payment, number 9. So the total to date is 2.4 million out of the $3.48 million contract, about 70%. The third paragraph there in the memorandum outlines the change orders. You have already approved numbers 1 to 9 and 11 to 18, a total of $177,000. The 4 that are listed as pending, the number 19 is optional restroom improvements. Number 20R is electrical and IT systems improvements. Number 21 is finish of existing drywall, and number 22R2 is the optional door refinish. I believe the sheriff personally reviewed each of these with you individually or as a subgroup in early December, so you're basically familiar with it. I listed the ones that were optional there is because the reason they were optional is they're things that were already in the contract. And for example, the restroom improvements. In many of the mass restrooms, we indicated to reuse the existing facilities. As it turns out, when they got into those and looked at them, and the staff looked at them, and the size and the partitions and everything just weren't going to be usable for long-term use. So the $23,000 is for upgrade there. But that's only in the 2 big mass restrooms. The electrical and IT systems, we're adding 24 more outlets and to facilitate the efficient use of various rooms and changing the switches from a occupancy controlled switch, which was bid, to standard switches, flip on and flip off. So there's a credit involved with that. It's already involved in that. The finish of the existing drywall, there was during the construction, they found out that certain walls, basically in the administrative wing, were not originally constructed with the original building. They just installed partition walls with little flimsy 2-inch studs behind them. So they need to stabilize those, and there are 8 rooms in the petition, or in the administrative wing that needs that. That's a little over $3,000. And then the door refinishing is $9,500 to refinish 14 existing interior doors that, as you all saw and looked at them, most of them were, they could be reused, but they would look a lot different than what the new doors would look like. So in total, Those four change orders total $41,888. With your approval, that would bring the total change orders to the project to $218,895. That includes the credits we've gotten back for what was bid. And just out of curiosity, I looked at that number. That total number is just a little over 6% of the original contract, so it's well within the range that is normal for a renovation building, for renovation. So if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Yes, sir. When we were there visiting, they brought up the fact that I believe they had to get a washer and dryer, and they had to put in a small transformer to accommodate that because of the power. Is that in here? Is that
That is in there.
still? Can you go over that with us just a little bit? What,
The voltage of the dryer would be, let me see, it was,
I think it's 208, and the voltage dryer is probably 240.
yeah, it was 208 versus the voltage of the new
Dryer is 4.
service that's coming in is 480.
Oh, it is.
So this takes that voltage down for that dryer right there.
Okay. Now, there's no gas going into this building, right? Natural
gas.
gas or anything like that?
Everything's electrical.
Everything's electrical. So it's taking care of the dryer, and what else? I think, is it a cooking stove also that's in the play?
That particular piece of equipment was over in the electrical room to handle that equipment, the dryer, washer, dryer combination that the sheriff is starting to put in.
I guess what I'm asking is, I understand we had to set a transformer so that we had the proper voltage to the dryer.
Yes,
Okay. There's also going to be a cooking stove in there.
yes,
Is that one transformer you said able to handle the voltage
yes,
of it?
yes,
Okay. And there's also going to be hot water in there.
yes,
So that one transformer is able to handle that as well?
yes. Handles it all.
Okay, so I think it was a 2 kW transformer. It wasn't a very big transformer, I didn't believe. But anyway, the one transformer we talked about,
Yeah,
and
the
it's
one-
5,000,
Yes,
will take care of all of the electrical apparatuses
yes,
that,
because all the circuits for that type of
That need to be-
equipment will be one circuit, and that handles it.
right, we needed up the voltage from 208 probably to 240, I
Yeah.
guess, and then one item probably 480. Okay. The
Yes,
one
sir.
So everything we got then is going to be 480 then? If we're moving the voltage up from 220 to 480 for one item, and we're using the same transformer, then,
No, we're not using the same transformer outside.
no, inside, I think you could refer to it as a buck transformer. We have 208 coming into the facility, correct?
Right.
Three-phase.
Right.
And sheriff needed a dryer.
Yes,
The dryer needs 240 volts, single
Yes.
phase. So we're setting a transformer to accommodate that.
yes,
Okay. Now, we also have a cooking stove.
yes,
I'm guessing needs 240 volt single phase as well.
yes,
And that transformer we're setting for the dryer will also accommodate the
yes, sir.
cooking stove.
Yes.
The third item is the
Hot
water heater.
Yes,
That, whatever voltage it needs, is going to have to be 482, because if we're putting 480 on one of them from the same transformer, the other two are going to have to be 480 as well.
Yes.
Or we're going to need a third transformer, or a second transformer.
no, there's one circuit going to those pieces of equipment.
Okay.
That transformer is ahead of that circuit,
Okay,
so it handles all that equipment.
okay, all right. All right. What I'm worried about is we've missed the hot water heater or missed something, we come back like, got to set another transformer here to accommodate that, so
No,
forth and
sir.
so on. It just seems odd that the dryer, I wouldn't think the dryer would be 480, I would think it'd be 240.
The commercial types of dryers and that type of thing that come in, that could come in.
Yeah.
are big.
Okay, I'm just thinking, I was under the impression they just bought a model from Lowe's or something like that, it wanted some kind of
I think that
industrial.
that piece of equipment in that electrical change order was roughly $900. So it's a
Thank you.
small piece of it.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Question?
Mr. Burton, this doesn't directly affect this change order question, but when we were down there, I remember asking the sheriff about that mountain of dirt out in the front, and he said that rather than disperse it right now, that there may be something that would be necessary, something you would need all that fill dirt or something for it? Do you have any idea in your design if you'd need that for anything?
You're talking about the mountain of dirt.
Right out along Route 33 in front of the old
Yeah, that was
RC.
from the HRSD project.
Right,
Some of that, if you've driven by it lately, there, I guess you call it the west end of it, the contractor got and used, our contractor
Okay.
for this job, got it and used to do some fill on islands
okay.
at the project. But that's the limit of it. There's
That's
no,
that's all you need. Okay, great, thank you.
that's gone.
Any other questions?
I have a more basic question, Mr. Chairman, because I don't think I attended the last coordination meeting because I was out of town. The sheriff has reviewed these change orders. He's okay with all of them?
Yes.
Okay, that was it.
I have a couple questions. The total to date, 2430, 577, and that's 70% complete, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And what's the target date of the completion of the project?
The substantial completion is still set for early April of 2025.
Okay. Do you have any indication that that will be extended?
Well, if you all don't improve the right-of-way agreements for VEPCO to bring service to the building and postpone that another month, yes, that would affect it.
So today you're asking, was my assumption, and my question was, I thought we were approving the Dominion. Are you looking for approval of the other items as well?
The issues that I'm looking for approval of are the 4 change orders. I think Mr. Walker has sent you copies of the
Yes.
right-of-way agreements that also need to be approved. You
Okay.
give him authorization to sign those so that we can get them back to VEPCO to bring service, the 3-phase service to the project.
Correct. Further questions, I see the electrical IT systems at 5387, but you also notated that there was a credit of 5383. Has that credit already been absorbed, and is it additional 5387 that you're looking
Yes.
for? Is
That
that correct?
Yes. The numbers in bold there already include, or the net after the credits have been applied to them.
Okay. Last question I have is the refinishing of the doors at 9554 estimated cost. Refinish 14 existing doors. There's more than 14 in there, correct? Or is that all the doors?
That's the 14 that are being reused. There are other doors that were
I
taken
I
out.
understand that. However, when we went and did the tour, there were several doors in there that did not appear that they needed to be refinished.
Everybody looked at that and decided that for the, there was a minor change, that if you decided that there were 2 doors, excuse me, I'm looking through the detailed one. There were 2 closet doors that if you decided not to have those refinished, we would deduct $462. 200,
It was more than 2 doors, and I didn't see the closet doors. The doors I looked at,
those were the 2 doors that the sheriff and the contractor indicated had been indicated to them that looked like they could be, could be reused without refinishing.
okay? I'm just going by my vantage point. There were several doors that I looked at, and I thought the discussion was, you guys need to look at those and make sure that they're usable the way they were. But there were more than 2 doors that I looked at that did not need to be refinished. My opinion.
What the contractor has put in the change order there is what he and the sheriff looked at in more detail after your all's visit.
Okay,
So there, total of 14 doors. If you decided there were, as I said, there are 2 doors, 2 sets of doors, 2 closet doors that did not really need refinishing. And if you decided to eliminate that, that would reduce that 9,554 to roughly 9,100. We'd subtract $464 from it.
I get the math.
I don't get the math. I did the math, and it comes up that we're paying $682 to a door to refinish the 14. But you say if we don't do a couple, we're gonna minus 400 and some.
Size of the doors.
Size of the doors, okay. So $682 seems to be a honest and fair price to refinish a door.
Yes, sir.
Not a critical, none of these change orders, maybe the electrical is not crucial at this point since we have an April 1 finish date, correct?
Substantial completion, not complete. Substantial completion, we'll go through the building, come up with the punch list for the final completion that is roughly 2 weeks later.
Got you.
When will the CO be issued, roughly? When it-
In that April time period, yes. Usually with substantial completion, you can get a temporary CO.
Any other questions?
I got one question, a little bit different. On the roadway that's coming into the sheriff's office on the east side, what are you all doing with that ditch?
Excuse me, what is my what?
What are you all doing with the ditch from, by the building, by the health department, going on down to the sheriff's office? Are y'all doing anything for its landscaping or anything to that ditch?
No, sir,
Nothing at all?
no. Nothing in drainage ditches there. They weren't landscaped before, and we don't have any landscaping in them now.
Okay, that must change, then, okay.
Anything else you'd like to add?
I believe that by the next meeting of the board, it will probably have the change orders for the pavement upgrade, the pavement upgrades for you all to consider. We've gotten a preliminary number from the contractor, looking at it with Jim Nagy, Chip, and myself, and the sheriff are all looking at that and evaluating whether or not that's reasonable to bring. It's multiple issues involved with it. A lot of them are optional cosmetic issues that you may decide to have done to certain pieces of that pavement that is older pavement.
Well, let's not keep us in suspense here. What kind of money are we talking? What kind of money are we talking roughly? What are you, our
If
prices?
all the things that are in that change order are included, $130,000.
And how about, do you have any kind of crystal ball of what the, you say retaining wall replacement, what that would be?
We're meeting with the contractor early next week to go over that. It's a minor piece. I don't.
It is, okay. Thank you.
Okay, what's the flavor of the board? Do you want to make a recommendation or a motion to approve the 1, 2, 3, 4 change orders?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the 4 change order and also the right-of-ways for Dominion.
County Attorney, can we approve all of them at one time, or
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would just like to, if Mr. Jesse's willing, I'd like for the 4 change orders that total $41,888. Is that correct, Mr. Burton? Is that the number? Ben?
Yes.
It's the 41,888, right? That's the total
Yes.
of the 4 change orders?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Jesse, are you agreeable to?
Yes, for the 41,888
Yes.
for the change order.
Yep, thank you.
so is your motion to approve the change order and the Dominion right-of-way?
Yes,
Is that
and the Dominion
correct?
right away, right.
Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second.
Motion made by Mr. Jesse to approve the change orders for the sheriff's office and the Dominion right-of-way, and seconded by Mr. Randy Crittenden. Any further discussion?
Just so I'm clear in my mind, the electrical portion of this that we're looking at voting on is going to take care of the hot water heater, it's going to take care of the cooking stove, and it's going to take care of the dryer.
And the sheriff's preferences for additional outlets for his option. for
Right,
his
I understand that
efficient
part. I'm worried
use.
about having to come back and set another transformer or something. Okay, all right. Thank you, I appreciate it.
By the way, all that's in.
Okay. Any further discussion? Just a comment. You know our propensity to change orders.
I understand that.
You understand
That's why
that?
we're going over this
Okay,
pavement.
just reminding you about that.
I understand it.
Okay.
This pavement one should be the last substantial one because it, as I say, it's more or less a cosmetic issue that,
I'd be interested, and I'll talk to Chip about it as well, and probably come out and look at it again. That's not a crucial thing right now with the completion of the project.
it's not crucial, but if it's put off till later, when all the final pieces of the pavement have been restriped, it could make it more expensive down the road, but it's a timing thing.
I understand.
Multiple pieces of it.
Okay. Roll call on the motion.
Mr. Crittenden,
Yes.
Mr. Jesse,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Bill Harris,
Yes,
Mr. Don Harris.
No. Motion's approved, though. Thank you very much for coming today.
The right-of-way agreements were approved also?
Yes.
Yes. Good. Thank you, sir.
All right. Okay, moving right along. Agency and staff reports, item number 5 on your agenda. VDOT report only. School matters report only.
One thing on the BDOT
Yes, sir.
report. It was turned in, I had some complaints from residents in my county, but this tree at Christ Church. And I told them to, to call, the proper channels, and they did. They got a work order on it, so what they're gonna do with that particular tree, and I'm pretty sure if you roll down 33, you see this tree been hanging outside the road for the last 25 years, and it's been leaning more all the time. And I'm pretty sure that something need to be done to it, and it's not an idea of when it's gonna fall. I mean, it's gonna fall. And I'm pretty sure if you go up 33, you think about ice, snow, and safety and all this kind of stuff. It should be addressed, but I just want you all to know that work order's done, and VDOT didn't have any report on it. I guess I have called that computer again, maybe we can get an answer. But I would, like to see we make a note of that, because what gonna happen is that somebody ride by it and that tree actually fall down on the windshield. I don't know if that's a county responsibility of VDOT, but something need to be done about it. And, so,
Do
I'll
we
just
know
make
if, has VDOT talked to Christ Church School? Is it?
oh, no, it's not Christ Church Schools. If you pass the tractor place on the left-hand side,
Okay,
all right, that tree been hanging over at the old Brill place,
okay,
that one that's hanging
Okay.
out in the road, and, a little bit of ice, it hangs a little bit low. I go on outside the road, man, when I go past there. I'm watching, when I drive Chevrolet, so I can get out of the way.
Mr. Williams, would you make a phone call to whoever about that? And maybe the next meeting, we'll have a little more information about that.
Mr.
Thank-
Chairman, I'll follow up with Lee McKnight as well.
Please.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, also I was, and Matt, can you refresh my memory? If a road is not marked, is that 55 miles an hour? Because right there in Locust Hill, where you're going down to the nursing home, I had a complaint, people going, 55 miles an hour on there. And I had a constituent asking, what can they do about that? But I think they gotta have, you gotta test it, and
Yeah, if my memory serves, if a county road's unmarked, it is 55. I
Okay.
think it defaults to 55, but I'd have to go back and check. It's been a while.
right.
because usually they're fairly well marked.
Okay.
Yeah. Is it 45?
It's
It
45?
defaults to 45? That may be right. It's been a while since that question's come up.
Yeah, I was just trying to remember, because I didn't remember, but there's a lot of roads like that road is not marked, but I had a complaint of people going 55 on that road.
Yeah.
Coming out going down to the nursing home.
Yeah, I can follow up with Lee on that as well.
And it might be prudent for him to be at our next meeting.
I will make that request. Yeah, usually they try to make one meeting a quarter, and I think they're due.
Okay, that'd be nice if you would talk to him in case something else comes up or we want to quiz him up a little bit more.
Will be done. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, moving right along. Well, school matters is no report, other than I'll remind everybody of the joint Board of Supervisors and School meeting on January the 22nd, and time frame is in question, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it is. We were in contact with school staff today, and in our minutes, we had, and I think where we left it at the last meeting, that the board was going to meet with the school board at 6 p.m. at the high school media center. But then upon following up with the school staff, they had, and all of their board members had the same times, that we were going to have the joint meeting at 4:30.
That's the way I understood it. Dr. Sykes, are you here?
She's there.
Thank you. Would you come
She's back in the country.
forward?
So with the board's authorization, y'all could still set that meeting for 4:30 because we haven't adopted the calendar yet for that. We're going to do that under my report, and I've already made the amendment because I had it on my calendar initially at 4:30 as well. For some reason, it's 6 o'clock in a minute, so it was a late night, evidently.
Dr. Sykes, what's your pleasure?
I have it also in meeting from our last, or minutes from our last joint committee meeting. I had 4:30, and that's what the time I communicated to the architect. And that was the time, I think, for the renovation committee that I sent out was 4:30.
That's what I had recorded in my book, and it
That's
don't
what we
go
have.
in my book unless I feel pretty secure about the time frame. So if I'm hearing you correctly, 4:30 is what we'd like to do for that. Is that
4:30.
correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
That's my recommendation as well.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Sykes.
You're welcome. Any other questions I could answer while I'm here?
Be careful what you ask for.
You know I don't like to step away until you tell me I can step away.
You've learned that very well.
I have.
Okay. No, ma'am. Thank you for being here and clearing that up for us.
I do
Appreciate it.
have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
What time school gonna start tomorrow?
Well, right now it is scheduled to start at 10 a.m.
Oh, okay.
We are on a 2-hour delay.
delay,
We
okay.
will, of course, reassess first thing in the morning to see how quickly that sun can melt the spots that I think will become icy again this evening.
Thank you.
So if we have to readjust, we will. But yeah, I put that call out about, I think about 2:30.
Okay.
10 o'clock is the plan.
Has the, you did not go to school on Monday.
So Monday was a work day anyway
Right.
for teachers, and we made that a work-from-home day. Today, the kids were supposed to come back after break, and we closed today. And I was driving back into the county, it was after 10 last night when I came in through Essex, and it was certainly the right call at that time. So we've had, all of our parking lots have been cleared, sidewalks have been cleared. We've looked at the roads, but we know that there's certain spots that are going to ice over and freeze again this evening. So we know that a 10 a.m. start is safe, and again, like I said, we'll reassess that also in the morning and see if we need to make any other adjustments.
So the weather conditions hasn't been a big deterrent for what y'all do?
No, it really hasn't.
Good,
Mm-mm.
good.
Nope.
All right. Any other questions for Dr. Sykes while we have her here? Thank you, Dr. Sykes.
Yep, you're welcome. Thank
Have
you.
a great day. All right. We've all been excitingly sitting at our seats waiting for item D, audit presentation and acceptance. Jay, good to see you.
How are you?
Well, I'm fine, thank you.
My name is Jay. I'm a partner with Robinson Farmer Cox, and we do the county audit. I do go a little bit quickly. I have given you my notes. Hopefully, you have those and you can follow along. But if you want me to stop and talk about something, please just tell me to stop, or you can ask a question afterwards. I want to start on page 1, which is the audit opinion. We are giving the county what's called an unmodified opinion, which means these financial statements are materially correct. It is the best opinion that we can give for financial statements. I do
Before-
want to bring up.
Could I ask you a question before
yes,
you
sir.
start? From the process, were you able to get everything that you needed
100%, yes, sir.
and cooperative between the staff and you guys?
Not only the staff, but also the school board as well.
Wonderful. Continue, sir.
I will bring up one thing in the opinion. We are restating beginning balances, and I'll talk a little bit about that later on. But that's because the county has reclassified the airport fund from the general fund to its own fund. Page 12 is Exhibit 1. This is the accrual balance sheet. I like telling boards, this is difficult for you to look at and see how the county's doing simply for the fact that there's adjustments made by the state with the VRS and OPEB, but we do have to go over it. Again, these adjustments are outside of the control of the county and the school board, but it does show a net position of government activities to be about $23.6 million, which is a decrease of about $300,000 from the prior year. The next page, Exhibit 2, is the income statement, again, on this, on the accrual basis with these adjustments done by the state. Again, it shows government activities has a net loss of about $300,000. Going on to Exhibit 3, which is page. Yes, sir. Yes, again, these are adjustments that are done by the state with VRS and OPEB, depending on how well the market did on things that they had. So a lot of this, you all don't have any ability to not manipulation, but have the ability to change anything on that. This is kind of adjustments done by the state that's outside of your guys' hands. The next exhibit, so this is inside the county's hands. This is what you're able to do. So Exhibit 3, which is page 15, this is the county's balance sheet on the modified accrual basis. This is how you keep your fund balances. The fund balance at the end of the year was about $19 million. This is compared to about $18.7 in the prior year, so you had an increase of about $300,000. And the unassigned fund balance was $17.4 million, which was up from $16.7. And your cash and investments at the end of the year was $19.4, which was up from $18.5 in the prior year. The next page, which is Exhibit 5, this is the county's income statement, again, on that fund balance, the way they keep it on the fund balance, a modified accrual basis. Your revenues were $13.8 million, which is up $200,000 from the prior year. And your expenditures were $33.8 million was your income, and $36.2 million was your expenses. This is up from $33.5 million. But we'll talk about the budget. You all budgeted for that. Quickly, I go over pages 19, 20, and 21. This is new for the financial statements this year. This is the airport fund, and this is their income, their balance sheet, income statement, and their cash flow. The airport fund is now treated like what's called a proprietary fund, which is for government and counties, almost like how a business would run instead of how a county or a government would run. So that's why these exhibits have to be pulled out and showed differently. Starting on page 42 is your long debt, and I always like to show this to the board.
Could I hold you
Yes,
for
sir.
just a second? I'm going to direct a question to Mr. Walker. And we had changed that from the airport on pulling those funds. Would you just elaborate on that briefly?
Yeah, in the past, the board had the airport fund, or I won't even call it a fund, it was the airport department, kind of lumped in right up front with debt service in a major function category, so it was in the debt service major function. It's something that Anne Marie and I picked up on when she first came to work with us, that it wasn't as transparent a way to display that airport department at that particular moment. I don't know why we've always done it that way, but we have. And it's one of the first steps at trying to make the budget more user-friendly. Emery, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but both of us feel like it's a little bit more transparent, separating it out into its own fund. We'll probably have to continue to transfer money into that to balance the funds position. It's always going to probably need some money from the county. I don't foresee it breaking even ever, but you never know. I won't rule that out. But it being a standalone fund was, I think, a neater way to display that and show it as its own proprietary fund, as opposed to just having it lumped in beside debt service on the budget. Yep.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes, the transparency on that is much better,
It's easier to understand. That's
for
right.
sure. Thank you very much. Just wanted to put that out there as a reminder
No,
of
thank you for
why
the
that was
question.
done. Okay, thank you.
Also on the same thing, Matt, you said that it will never balance, right?
It balances with the county sending a transfer.
In other words, it never balances, it don't have enough money to support itself.
No, sir.
Now,
Not,
are we taking money out of what the airport is receiving to go somewhere else?
we set aside airport-specific revenues, like, for instance, gas sales, and I believe the airplane tax now. Is that correct, Emery?
No, yes and no.
Yeah.
So if you'll look on page 20, which I have up on your screen right now, the sale of fuel, the hangar rent, and charges for services are automatically parts of the revenue for the fund. We do not transfer the taxes. So you'd asked about the airplane taxes. We don't do that. That's part of the general fund because it's a tax. But in our mind, we were saying, well, that could be part of the subsidy. That could be part of the subsidy that we do support the airport fund. Now, again, how you justify this often, or how many people justify it, is an airport fund has more than just a component that benefits the users of the airport. It benefits the public in general. So keeping it open is a public benefit, ergo, it's good to keep it open, ergo, we supply funds to keep it running.
And the reason it never balances is because you take your tax money from the airplanes and put it into the general fund.
No, the airport
Well,
taxes were
the
only about,
personal property tax,
that's only about $26,000.
yeah.
But,
Yeah,
The
that's,
hangar rent is what,
they
but
get
you
that.
do take funds out.
No,
No funds out, because it should be pretty simple if no funds out. On the check and balance system, we could see, and I'm just using the words by what you said, it'll never balance itself. And you don't know whether you're doing a good job or a bad job if you say it never balance itself. All I'm saying is see revenues come in, and if anything go to somewhere else, just on our classification, it's revenues just the same. And I would thought that it was all the money that we get from the airport, that area, period, it's a certain amount of revenue.
no, taxes go to
Well, I
the
got
general
taxes,
fund.
you gotta.
Taxes have to come to the general fund, that's,
But I got what you're saying, it got to go from general funds, okay? But if the airplane won't there, it won't be going to the general funds. Now, I can't say that in just an opinion, I haven't looked at it real good, but if you take money from the airplane, put it in the general fund, they'll never balance themselves.
Well-
It's no way it's gonna balance.
On the personal property tax, the only thing that goes into the general fund, the gasoline does not.
that's correct, and you'll
hangar
see that
rents
at
and
the top.
everything else,
Okay.
say an airplane
Okay,
fund.
we work on
And,
it.
and if I may, and I don't want to, I won't drill down too much here tonight, probably better discussion for a work session, but the reason why I say it will probably never balance is if you truly assess the cost, there are a lot of costs that we cover under buildings and grounds maintenance that aren't assigned to that airport fund because they're buildings and grounds for the county. So a lot of the maintenance that we do under buildings and grounds, for instance, we could get very detailed and start breaking those costs down and keeping a better cost accounting of
Cost
where
accounting.
time is spent. But, and I'm channeling my inner Jamie Barnhart now. If he was here, he'd be jumping up. An airport is a runway. It's a medium of transportation. And roads don't pay for themselves either, but you notice them when you don't have them. So it's a medium of transportation. It's an investment. To expect it to pay for itself. There are really, really large airports that do not pay for themselves, but they definitely add to the economy of the area. So I feel like I need to say that, because if Jamie was here, he'd probably want that said.
In past years, how much has the county had to subsidize, you know?
Well, in past years, we've only separated it out in a proprietary fund. And let me answer it this way, Bill. Because we have done that, the board will know how much money from general fund revenues are going to transfer to the airport. You'll see that every year in the budget, just like last year. And I think last year, what did we transfer to balance?
I was hoping you wouldn't ask that, I don't know.
I think it was like 36,000.
That sounds about right.
Yep. And this year, we'll have a better idea of how much money that is, and you'll be able to see it right up front, because it's just like the transfer to Middlesex Public Schools. It's right there in the transfers. It's not tucked away in a department. Yeah.
You know, the only thing. Same thing, Matt. I understand what you're saying,
Okay.
but I just want more detail. 2025, regardless of what organization you're in, I know what you're talking about when you say you justify manpower, and we don't figure that out, so we take it from another budget. I understand what you're saying. I want to see what it is. You're talking about time versus personnel. So if you got personnel spend a certain amount of time there, that is time. And I can see what we are saying, talking about going to the general fund, we put it there and we don't understand. But I do like to see separate things, say, hey, we can stand on our own. Y'all can mix it together as much as you want to. But I don't know for anybody else, I want to see the real deal. And the real deal is that check and balance. And don't get lost when you pull something out and put something back and justify it by saying this is the reason that we do that. Forget about the reason that you do it, because I think we can just look at the real numbers. And the real numbers, I want to see if it justifies itself. If you take all the airport and, all the planes and blank, all the gas and put it in the general fund. Then you say the airport don't do itself. Through justification over a period of time, that have been done. They have done it. I mean, I'm not saying the airport, but I know people have done it through justification. And I just want to see the numbers. That's all. I just want to see.
We can sit down with
I
our.
was talking to Anne Marie, I was saying the same thing about the numbers, and I like what you're doing, because it's a lot clearer now than what it was at first.
Right. Well, it's been on the bucket list of many things to do for a while, and I'm glad we've got it done too. We could sit down with our buildings and grounds crew and give you a report, an estimation of how much time,
Yeah.
materials.
Well, and as a matter of fact, we do that for the library. The library
Yeah.
says how much, because we are required to mow the library. We give them an estimate. We say it takes, and I don't have it in front of me, but say 45 minutes a week, this employee, this
Right.
pieces of equipment. So we can
And-
certainly come up with that if so needed.
Yeah, and that's something the Library of Virginia, not getting way down a rabbit hole here, but that's something the Library of Virginia wants to see as an in-kind contribution, because we don't contribute the full amount of the cash contribution that normally would be for a library, but they do give us some credit for the in-kind contributions. So we can do something very similar for the airport. And happy to get that for you.
And remember, next year, let me clarify, for next year, this will have 2 years, right? Will this page will
No, it
exhibit?
will only show 1 year.
Okay, Exhibit 8 will only show 1 year. Will the back statement show 2 years, or no?
It will only show.
Okay.
We'll have a better track record of how the airport fund's doing. So,
Okay, yes, well, progress is being made. Rome wasn't built in a day, and it is becoming easier to see the expenditures of what you guys the staff has already done. Thank you very much. And with Mr. Lewis there, his intention is to balance it over time, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, sir.
more hangers would help,
Right
I guess.
answer. Continue, sir.
Jay, thank you. I know this was a lot more work.
No.
We had a lot more work because of this, so thank you.
I will go, page 42 is where I left off. This is a long-term debt. I think it's good for the board and the citizens to see when long-term debt is due. There's about $9 million in long-term debt for the county and about $7.6 million of long-term debt associated with the school board. And pages 43 and 44 kind of show the timing of these debt payments through 2045.
Mr. Chairman, Jay, I'm going
Yes.
to ask you to elaborate a little bit on that, because I know Robinson Farmer Cox does, at one time, y'all were doing 80% of the audits across the state. I don't know what that.
I think it's a little bit more now.
It's a little bit more now, that's right. Some of our citizens have expressed concern with any amount of debt, and I'm not going to make light of that because it's an opinion. What's your general assessment as an auditor on how Middlesex County stands vis-a-vis with our colleagues around the state in terms of our indebtedness?
Personally, I audit 11 localities east of 95, and you guys are probably in the top half of debt to revenue ratio. So I don't see a problem with this county, and I've been to boards where I've been honest with them and said, I think you all have borrowed too much at too high of a rate. You might need to refinance. I don't have any problems with the debt load at the county right now.
Very good.
That said, could you sometime work us up a figure where you would start being air caution, where our debt
Yeah, I can.
sometime? You don't, I mean, I know you're not prepared today, but sometime give us a number. where
Right
that-
now.
Usually, yeah, usually it's a ratio based upon your revenues. And
However it works out, if you just would come up, I appreciate it. Thank you.
I do want to go, one more thing about debt on page 46. This is the debt associated with the Water Authority that is due through 2062. On page 92, this is the details I wanted to discuss real quick about the restatement of the prior year balances. This is where we move essentially the assets that's associated with the airport out of the government activities into its own fund, as we discussed earlier. So I think it was 1.3 million roughly, 1.35 million came out. Page 116, which I'll just go over real quick, Exhibit 32, this is the school board balance sheet. And the next page, Exhibit 33, is the school board's income statement. I do want to state that the county contributed to the schools about $12.2 million. Page 128, Schedule 1, I think these are the best schedules for board and citizens to see. This is how well you all did compared to what you budgeted. And on page 130, Schedule 1's the revenue. 130 shows that the county budgeted for $32.7 million, but received $33.8 million, so you received more than you budgeted for. And Schedule 2, which starts on page 134, this is your expenditures. And the county budgeted for $39.2 million in expenditures, but only spent $36.2. And the variance on the expenditures mostly due to the construction budget was less than, what you actually spend was less than what you budgeted for, as well as contributions to the school board actually being less than what was what you had budgeted for. What they needed was less. Page 147, this is the auditor's report on internal controls. We're showing no findings, which is great. And page 149 is our auditor's report on compliance for each major program, federal programs that we have to audit, and there are no findings. Page 152 is our schedule of expenditures for federal awards. This shows what the entire expenditures, federal expenditures you had in FY24. And between the county and school board is $4.1 million. And finally, page 155 is schedule of findings and question costs. I have no items to report, and we did audit two major programs, two major federal programs. Both of them happened to be at the schools, the school nutrition and the education stabilization fund, some of that ARPA, kind of ARPA money that the schools received. I do want to express that the treasurer's office and the finance department here at the county made things very easy for me. For my team. They're very easy to work with. And I do want to express, even though I'm not standing in front of the school board finance department here at Middlesex, I believe out of the 11 counties that I audit is in the top 10, or 10%, Probably the first or number two. I want number two to think that they're number one sometimes, so.
They're smiling back there. They're hoping to lord something over West Point, right?
Are there any questions? And again, if you have other questions that you don't have right now, feel free to email me.
Could you just go back to page 46 and it's the water authority? It's kind of run through that just a little bit there.
So that's the debt that's owed by the Water Authority. Again, it's $22.2 million over the next, 40 years, 35 years, give or take. Is there a particular question you have on that?
What kind of problems you see in there? See any problems in there?
No, the rate isn't high. A lot of the localities that I've audited either refinanced or got debt when it was pretty low. And you all are in a very good spot when it comes to the interest rate. You used the money for the construction, and that's what you all decided that you needed to do and that needed to be done. So I don't see a problem. What I have seen, and this isn't at Middlesex right now, but that the rates were so low that localities put money in to SNAP, what they need to do with the money that they receive from bond offerings that haven't been spent yet. And SNAP ended up having, because how things work, the interest rate that they've earned has been higher than the interest rate on the bonds, which is a good thing, but the federal government says you only have allowed a certain amount, so you have to send some money of that back. I don't think, it's called arbitrage. It has not happened, I don't think, at Middlesex. No. It has happened at a couple localities that I have audited, just to make you aware, and they usually look at that at a 3-year period, every 3 years.
So you didn't go as in-depth to look at our revenue coming in. We look like we're looking pretty good shape.
Yes, yeah. I would have mentioned if I thought there was a problem with covering debt.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I have one, maybe two. Thank you for being here today, for sure, because when you're going through a booklet this thick, you don't catch attention to maybe, or you miss something, and you've covered some of the, at least for me, some of the questions that I potentially would have asked you, you've already covered them. So thank you very much for that. Would you, out of all the reading that I've done on this, one of the pages that I liked the most was 155. Would you comment on that, please? Last page.
So again, and this has been, as far as I've done the audit, and I've done the audit off and on, you all know my predecessor, Paul Lee, who's done the audit for many years. I have been on the audit off and on for probably the past 6 or 7 years. I think this is every time with the County of Middlesex, is that we have no financial statement findings, which means you are considered what's a low-risk auditee for the federal government when it comes to your federal awards. What that means is, luckily, you all don't have to have a more detailed audit inside your federal money. There's a percentage that we have to audit. As a low auditee, you only have to have 20% of your federal revenues audited, which is, we do over 20%, but the threshold is 20%. And again, you are what's considered a low-risk auditee, and we have no financial statements findings. We have no federal award findings. And the reason why you're a low-risk auditee is you've had that for at least 2 years. But again, here at Middlesex, as long as I've been with Robinson Varmer Cox, I don't think there has been any findings at Middlesex.
And from that sheet, I'll take that with all the checks of no deficiencies, that's a good thing.
That is a very good thing, yes, sir.
Wonderful. I just wanted you to say that in public. Any other questions?
I'm glad you had him say that in public.
Any other questions? Thank you very much for your cooperation and working with our staff and being here to explain the audit process. It's valuable to us, and thank you very much.
And I'll get, Anne Marie, I'll get you a percentage that I think revenue to debt that you can pass on.
One last thing.
Yes, sir.
And I had already asked Anne Marie, one of the questions I asked her was, and she commented how easy it is to work with you guys, and both sides work very well together, which is a big thing too. She also, one of my questions to her, not to put anybody on the spot, was if you see something that we could do better, do they discuss that with you? And her comment was yes, and I assume that is the case.
It is, and we had long discussions about the airport fund and what we think we needed to do. So I will express, not all my counties are like this, but stability is a major issue of why things run smoothly.
Wonderful.
So I'd like to commend that.
Thank you, sir, for being here today. All righty. We got you all warmed up, Mr. Wade, for Working Waterfront Grant Project.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. Mr. Chairman, you need to approve your audit, so you need a motion.
Vote to accept the audit.
Yeah.
Are you asking him to do that this meeting, Anne Marie, or?
I didn't know I had to, so no, I wasn't going to, but that's a really good idea. I think we should have a vote to,
I think you do have to approve right after my
Yeah.
presentation.
You gotta vote to
Wonderful.
accept the audit. But
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion that we approve the audit from Robinson Cox.
Motion's been made to approve the audit.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bill Harris. Any further discussion? Seeing none, hearing none. Roll call, please.
Mr. Jesse,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Bill Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Crittenden,
Yes.
Mr. Don Harris.
Yes, motion's approved. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Waite.
All right, good afternoon, Chairman Harris and.
is this yours?
Yes.
while y'all are getting set up, Ricky, I really want to commend y'all on how you handled the public meeting at RCC. I thought that was very well done.
We were very pleased with the outcome and the turnout from the public and yourself and we had some elected officials. We were really pleased. Before I get started on this, I did send you a text message. So it's 55 miles per hour and for vehicles on routes numbered 600 or above and 45 for trucks.
I think I got that in stereo because my colleague behind me was saying, hey, it's 45 for trucks, it's 55 for
It
cars.
is. So, and if there is a process, if you want to lower it, you can lower it. You go right next door and talk with Lee.
See,
So-
that's what I love about Middlesex. We were both right.
Yeah. Exactly. It's 55 for vehicles, 45 for trucks. Well, again, thank you. Ricky Wyatt with VHB, and just wanted to, Matt or Mr. Walker asked me to come and kind of give an update from that on the project. I was here a few months ago, and so this is meant to just be an update, another step along the way, if opportunity for you to ask questions, and we'll just go from there. As we mentioned last time, this project has been ongoing for a little over a year now. The project was funded by a grant that was obtained by the Middle Peninsula Planning District Commission. Louis Lawrence and Kurt Smith there obtained the grant from the USDOT for our planning services that we've been doing over the last year, a little over a year. So you can see on the screen the schedule we've gone through. We've been out to all the sites. We're in that last phase right now of design, engineering, permitting. One thing I really want to stress today and to respond to a lot of the comments we have gotten, we're only going to 30% design right now. And so there's going to be a lot more opportunity for neighbors and public to comment and critique designs and ask questions. And so right now, today, I was missing one meeting to be here today. Our guys are steady working on those 30% plans. We have a goal deadline, and I'll mention this again at the end, of January 30th is when we have to submit for this next grant. Nothing that the county has to do that, but just letting you know. Those 30% plans, I am happy to, they'll be publicly available. We'll share with Mr. Walker, and he can disperse them out. From that 30% plans, we will then, if we get the grant, which we'll know about 6 months later, whether we get the funding for that, we will then come back and go from 30 to 100%. We will have more public engagement. We will meet with neighbors. So I think some of this, I'm going to go over the comments we've gotten from your citizens. Some of it was they didn't feel like they were reached out to enough, maybe directly. And some of it was we started with 65 sites. We weren't going to contact neighbors of all 65 sites. We had to figure out what sites we were going to make suggestions for improvements, and then we'll start the public engagement process. Also, just a big overarching comment too, we did the preliminary plans that you'll see and that the public saw without the benefit of a survey, topographic survey, wetland survey, hydro survey. We've done that now, and the 30% plans that will be distributed and that will be used for the grant application will have all that information. Again, it was a timing. We didn't go spend the money to survey all 65 sites if we were only going to suggest improvements at 11 sites. So it's been a rapid process and something we've been working through with the PDC, but I just want to stress that there's more opportunities. It's only 30% design. We're excited that the public engagement meeting was very exciting. We had over 50 people. The room was full. People got there early. We gave a great presentation and had a lot of conversation. And then afterwards, we stayed around for a while to look at the boards on the walls and just have one-on-one conversations. So there was a lot of excitement, and especially here in Middlesex, around your 3 sites, which I will go into now.
A question.
Yes, sir.
So are y'all down to 11 sites now?
Yes, and I'll have those 11 sites on the slide.
Okay. All right, wonderful. Continue.
So just a quick reminder of when we first started this, we did work with the maritime industry, the watermen, and we went to those end users, the buyers of the seafood, the guys that are actually out there in the water getting the seafood, that whole process. There's many steps to this process. And we just asked, what would you want to see? And so, again, we weren't planning on building any big marinas, but we were looking for, the biggest thing was improved boat ramps and improved docks that they could access the water from. And then in some places, actually, the water depth was issues. So especially at two of your sites, the dredging and the water depths were a concern that needed to be addressed. So I'll go through this a little bit more in detail on each plan. So, Mr. Harris, you asked, these are the 11 sites. They are color-coded by the county you're in. So y'all are most important, so you're number one, right?
And this is going to be submitted, these 11 sites, on January 30th? Is
Yes,
that what
sir.
you said?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, it is packaged as a one package to USDOT for a funding source. The maximum funding is $25 million that would then be spread out between the sites. As part of the design or development of the 30% plans, we are refining our cost estimates. And based on some of the public comments in the surveys, some of the designs are scaling back some, and so there may be some money that we can shift around, do some things at some of the sites that we might not have been able to do when we first laid it out. So the three sites here in Middlesex County are Whiting Creek Landing, which also known as Carlton Road, couple different names for that one, Mill Creek Landing, and then Stampers Bay on the Piankatank. You can see the other sites there. Part of this whole thing, and I did mention this last time, was to be equitable to the entire region. This was that's part of the grant, is to bring improvements to the entire region, Middle Peninsula, to the maritime industry. So we were able to choose 3 sites in Middlesex, 3 in Matthews, 3 in Gloucester, and then 1 in King and Queen and 1 in Essex. Again, I will keep pointing this out. There's a big gap between 1 and 11 on the Rappahannock River. And that is something in the future that really should be addressed by future planning grants or localities. And it's almost split right down the middle between Essex and Middlesex. But there's a large gap in public infrastructure for public use in that stretch of the river. There's a lot of good seafood out there. It's hard to get to on public land. So something to keep in mind. The other one is on your eastern end, Broad Creek, going towards the bay. There's also a gap. We have a similar issue in Matthews, which they're looking at some things right there at Hole in the Wall. So part of this study did identify the holes. We picked 11 sites that would fit within our budget that we have, that would make the biggest impact, but we also did identify some holes in the public infrastructure.
Is this an all or nothing type thing? In other words, can number 1 be approved and not number 2, or how does it?
So we are applying for the 25 million. If we only get 15 million, then yes, we'll have to come back and say, we can't do all the improvements. And then in the end, each locality is going to be the owner and maintainer of what's built. I mean, it's a public facility. So if you want to scale something back or change something or not build something, then you would have that opportunity. But I will say, we are applying for this as a package. So if we tell the federal government that we're going to make improvements at all 11 sites and we decide not to do anything at one of the sites, it may be frowned upon for future funding. And I mean, as far as delivering what we're saying we're going to deliver in the grant.
I think in some meetings I've said this before, and let me go ahead and make it public. I'm against doing this project at Stampers Bay. I think if you looked at VMRC, they would be able to go through their records and see that I've been on the Piankatank River 40, 50 years. And it's a little bit deceiving to me that we're going to say that there's going to be a working waterfront there when there's not enough seafood in the Yankee Tank to support it. The only thing anymore that really we need trucks for and stuff is the oysters. And Whiting's Creek, how much room do we really have there without getting a lot? Wake Landing, that's the jewel of what we have here. And to me, for us to take any money and do Stamford's Bay, saying it's going to be a workman's waterfront, is deceiving to the federal government, and I'm not in the business of doing that. So that's where I stand.
So
But I do
we-
appreciate all your efforts. Thank you very much for everything you're doing. I do.
Absolutely. And Sampers Bay has been one that we've gotten a lot of comments on. And so, although it's not updated here because we are still working on it, we are scaling that back considerably. We still see a need for a ramp and a dock, where we've taken off the floating sections and expanding. So what we're in our revised design are looking at is just an L-shaped dock coming out and landing at the end. That could be used to launch kayaks, could be used to fish off of, could be used to launch a boat. I mean, right now, it's an unapproved boat ramp at all. And so,
Launching kayaks, though, and fishing off the pier really doesn't come under a working waterfront for the watermen, though.
it doesn't, but you'll see that part of the grant application is a cost-benefit analysis. And so this project is going to help the watermen, but it is also going to benefit the recreational users. And so we've actually gotten comment back from the grant reviewers talking about, yes, include that as a benefit. Even though the project is meant to help commercial watermen, it is going to benefit the recreational users as well.
Because that's what Stamford's Bay would be, recreational. You're not going to get people that put 2 boats over there now to peel apart or something. They'll be the same ones. There's not enough river there to.
And I will say, so when it's not just the seafood industry, it's the we focus on the seafood, but it's the maritime industry as well. I've personally been down there and spoken with the dock builder. He pulled his barge there and his employees were actually parking there. They pushed the barge around, and he specifically said this would be a great place where I can load material onto the barge and push it up if I'm working on a shoreline or a dock or something along the Piankatank River.
I
So
understand what
it's
you're
not
saying.
meant to be just working watermen, the seafood industry as well. That gentleman, he was staging his barge at the bridge, at Twiggs Ferry Bridge, and then having to work back and forth because he didn't have a dock or anything at Stampers Bay. So,
I understand your point, but he's building a dock 3 miles up the river. He would use a landing over in Gloucester, wherever it's convenient. He's a businessman, he'll do the right thing, and I understand what he's saying, but for us to say that it's a working waterman and we're going to put this in because a contractor happens to be putting a dock close by and it's convenient, I'm glad that it is convenient for them. But the next dock they put in may be another place that's more convenient. So.
absolutely, which is why we tried to pick 11 sites. Because originally, when the grant was proposed, it was 3 or 4 sites, and it was exactly that point. Yes, oysters are the biggest cash producer. There's also crabs and finfish, and those things move around. And so the idea was having 11 sites spread out in the region, where again, Stampers Bay, that might not get used every day or once a week for this purpose, but it's still providing a spot. We looked closely at a spot in Matthews. I think I mentioned this before. The difference is Stampers Bay is on a protected cove. The site that is across the river in Matthews, the water depth isn't adequate until you get about 300 feet out, and then you've got full exposure to wind and the fetch coming up the river. So we looked at both of those because all we were trying to do is fill a hole in that network. There isn't anything else on the Piankatank that a spot where we could do that, something like this, with this type of water depth and protection from the fetch, the wind.
Deep Point up the river that's got a state boat landing and everything there, and it's got a hole 18 feet deep.
So that, so some of the restrictions, if it was a previous, still under lease for DWR and they had interest in keeping those leases, we couldn't do those improvements. Because technically that's the same reason like at Mattapanai, and there's a great boat ramp right across the river, but that's a state and you're technically not supposed to use those ramps for commercial use.
So bringing this up, you've gotten word somehow or another that the state is no longer interested in wake boat landing then? I mean, I understand what you're saying about the two you described because it's a state property and so forth and so on. Well, the state has some property down there at Wake Boat Landing. They're saying they're throwing their hands up so we can go forward there when they own property, just as they do at Deep Point and just as they do over on the Mattapanai.
Yes, that was our understanding, that was, if with this project, we wanted to do the improvements, that this would be taken on by the county, or through this grant, and taken on by the county.
I mean, I'm all for doing it there at the Wake Boat Landing. It just seems like to me we're applying it in different ways. On some of these, to say it state has land there, we can't do anything, but in Wake, we're not acknowledging that the state has property there.
It was part of the evaluation when we went from 65 down to the 11, and which ones they had interest in and not. And Matt, please correct me if I'm wrong on any of that.
Is it a scenario that if the grant goes forward with the Mill Creek landing, could that be done and the state own it?
Could it be done and the state own it? It could. It's who's going to maintain it,
Right.
Who's going to be the maintenance party.
Right.
I think that's something we should consider here. We get all three of these. That's something the county's gonna have to budget for 3 sites.
I have one question. If situation changed in any way and there was another boat ramp that might, or a working waterfront ramp that might be a better location than, say, Stampers Bay or something, would there be any mechanism anyway that we could approach your organization and say, this is, you might want to take a look at this?
So it would be a decision at the federal level. We'd be altering the grant, and there's processes for that.
I see.
I've seen funding for a bike trail that was supposed to start from here and go to X and go to Y, and then they had to shift it based on changes. And so then you go back to the granting agent and say, look, we need to make this change. It would be a process. Ideally, we don't go into it thinking that we're going to have a wholesale change or any type of change like that. But there are processes to change your application.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I do want to get through these. So, I said it early on again, like this design right here, we already know that once we got the wetland delineation back and some of the topographic survey, what you're seeing there is based off of LiDAR and satellite data. And we've since then field surveyed all of that. But the main thing at Whiting Creek was to improve what's there. You've got the parking that's all along this side right here. All that parking is there today. It's on an unimproved gravel state. You've got a bulkhead there today. I'll flip ahead to the picture so everybody that's not as familiar. And so a lot of what we're proposing, and I think some of the public, again, overwhelmingly, there was a lot of support for the project, but the details, and again, when you're at 30%, it's hard to get a lot of that across. What we're proposing is concrete docks. And people, I think, got the idea that concrete means industrial or, just unsightly. The reason we're proposing concrete is concrete lasts a lot longer than wood. And so when we talk about a concrete dock, we're talking about the piles that go into the water, those being concrete piles. So they're not going to rot. They're going to be there longer than any of us. The deck material, there are concrete panels that you put in. You can do treatments on it to still make it look like wood, stamped concrete, different treatments. But that's the type of element so that you mentioned maintenance or the cost to own these facilities. The idea is to design them in a way that they have reduced costs in the future. So I'm sorry that the public kind of misunderstood a little bit of that because we did get a lot of comments about we don't want concrete docks. But the idea is that the reason we're proposing concrete docks is for their longevity and less maintenance for the localities. And the same thing here with your bulkheads and those type of elements. We'd be replacing those with either vinyl piles or concrete when necessary. So a lot of it is upgrades to what you have. You have issues with the ramp dropping off. You've got elevation issues. So whether it's coming up 6 or a foot, that would improve where the truck is parking. If that whole site was just raised 12 inches, some of these sites go underwater every high tide. If the moon's right, the wind's blowing the right way. And so our improvements that we're proposing are minor upgrades. Again, going back to Stampers Bay, that one, you have areas that at a good high tide, that's underwater. So Middlesex doesn't experience it as much as you would say Matthews, or actually 2 of the sites in Gloucester, they're underwater at just about every really good high tide. So some of this project is really just about elevating the parking lots and then going back with either concrete paving or a thicker asphalt pavement section. So again, instead of having that gravel that the county or the state is maintaining, it's a material that will be there much longer with less maintenance. So Mill Creek, or Carlton Road, whichever way you want to refer to it. The big element here is something that y'all have studied in the past, is the feature that is meant to be we call it a wave screen, but it's to stop that sand from pushing towards the inlet and clogging that in. So we are proposing slips here along that. Either way, we'd have the wave screen. So those are the type of things that we'll tweak based on public comment and input from the 30% to 100%. But either way, we need to create a wall here that will stop that sand from pushing into the area of the functional area of the boat ramp. Same thing with the concrete boat landing. We are showing that, concrete boat ramp and dock. We're showing it because we'd like it to be able to drive out onto for the watermen or the maritime industries if they're offloading product or picking up product, to be able to drive out, pick the product up and leave quickly. They're not in the business of sitting around all day long. So all of these are really meant more of kind of drop off, pick up, making that process more efficient. In this particular one, we wouldn't be adding additional parking. Your parking is already along this side. We would just be improving the surface of that parking. And then there is the comment about making sure we still have the fishing pier, and so we are showing that on the side of the boat ramp.
People quite frequently do fish off that pier.
Absolutely.
I've seen quite a few children and mothers out there, and
No, I know that the neighbor doesn't want people on the beach either, so hopefully, I think this wall will help in something that makes a little bit more of a barrier and probably something that would
agree.
help the complaints that y'all probably get with the trespassing that occurs there. So yeah, again, just some photos of that site.
Is the grant money that's available, is that, can any of that be included in the actual dredging of some of these boat ramps?
Yes.
Okay.
So we distinguished, we put in money for dredging at the ramp itself, if we didn't have adequate depth at the ramp to get to the nearest channel. The idea was that between the PDC's new dredging program, They would be responsible for the channel out to the river, doing that. Or there are other funding sources from the Port Authority. There's a lot of dredging money that's coming out. And so there were some sites, again, not yours, but Timberneck Creek in Gloucester. Williams Landing is a great site. It's heavily used. We needed dredging right at the dock, so we included that. But really, the whole creek needs to be dredged. We didn't apply, we're not putting the whole creek dredging in our project because there are other funding sources that will pay for that. So we did, this particular one, we had 12,000 cubic yards of dredging. Some of the other ones, similar quantities, but we didn't include dredging entire creeks with this funding source. And then the last one, Stampers Bay, again, I will say this has come off and this dock has been shortened into an L shape. And really, again, it's a single ramp that's being proposed. And I'll bring this up. We were showing dumpsters at every site. That was something we also heard some pushback on. We've taken those off. Each locality has asked us to handle a little differently. Some sites are just said, well, just do the trash cans. The trash service still comes and picks them up. I mean, at Stampers Bay, when I was down there, there was a crab pot bushel with people just throwing trash in. I don't know who takes it away, but there's always going to be trash. And so it is a difficult thing to solve. If you put a dumpster there, then it's somewhere for people to throw trash, but then it also becomes a secondary dumping spot for all your neighbors and the non-watermen. So that's a detail. Mr. Harris, you mentioned about making changes to the grant, or Mr. Critton about making changes to the grant. We can still work that out, whether it's no dumpster or trash cans or a dumpster. Each locality can kind of handle that how they want. Same thing with porta potties. We're not talking about building restrooms, but Matthews does put porta potties at their ramps, and they just that's part of their maintenance, and they're good with that. Gloucester doesn't. So I mean, that's really a preference by the county. It is something that the watermen, and I would imagine recreational fishermen and people fishing on the dock would like to have a facility that they could use. So that's kind of up to the county. It's one of those things, you can build it, and then if the need's there, you can put it in. And then also, if it's being abused, you can take it away. And it really wasn't a big expense. So that's.
Is there enough space there at Stampers Bay to turn a boat trailer around?
Depending on the size of the trailer, I mean, so this is what it looks like today. This is probably your best. I mean, you can swing around. It's, again, you've got some drainage issues, but you can swing around this way and set up. I mean, this is what your boat ramp looks like today. It's just a gravel, soft launch.
You have to launch kayaks down there. I just couldn't imagine trying to turn a boat trailer.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's tight, but it is doable. We've seen it. One of the comments we did get were from the kayak users about putting in concrete launches or ramps. And one of the things we said, well, if we build these new docks, you could add an ADA accessible. They sell kits pretty much that you could, the easy load, and a lot of localities are going, there's small grants that will pay for those as well. You can basically use the dock we're putting in and add on to it if you had a desire to make an ADA kayak launch.
Something I would just add to the discussion is if the grant is successful, there's other on-ramps and exit ramps as far as the final design of these sites. For instance, we're going to have to assess if we're going to be involved in maintaining it, what the operational cost is going to be. We'll have to get with our buildings and ground staff, see what we need to do. A dumpster, yeah, how often are you going to empty a dumpster, and is it going to become a shortcut to the transfer
Every
station?
day.
It's something, we really have to weigh that in. So how soon do you think you would know if we're going to be successful in receiving the grant funds?
So the federal agency says it's about 6 months.
About 6 months,
Yeah.
so around summertime.
Yeah.
So we have a little bit of space and time to look at, one, the design into it components that we can afford to maintain if we're going to be the ones maintaining it. Maybe the Chesapeake Bay Access Authority.
It may be the public access authority.
And/or the state.
Yeah. Higher odds that it's the access authority.
Yeah, right. But I want to make sure the board hears, and we are correct in our understanding, that there's multiple cuts at this apple yet to happen.
Absolutely. And again, we have a consultant working with us right now because, again, I mentioned the cost benefit analysis. We have to project some of those operating costs.
Good.
And so Mark Mansfield with Shore Consulting Group, he does a lot of work locally.
He's our consultant with the Deltaville dredging project.
Okay, yeah, so Mark, he's actively, I just spoke with him again this morning. He worked the whole holiday. He's very entrenched in this project. But he's diving, that's because he's doing the cost benefit analysis. And so he's reaching out and creating those operating cost estimates. So that's something we'll be able to share.
That was one of the things my neighbors cornered me on out in the hallway over by the Middlesex exhibits. It was the dumpster in particular.
Yeah.
Matt, are you going to make sure that dumpster gets dumped about every other day because it's going to get full? And I told him that phone call would go to Dave Kretz. But
I mean, we
no, I told him we were looking at how much or how little we offer at each of these sites. That's still very much in the works.
And so one of the conversations we had was, like I said, just doing those 55 gallon residential scaled trash cans. Do 2 of those. Is somebody less likely to come bring their whole truckload of trash if that's all that's there? But somebody fishing or coming in off the boat and he has something small to throw away, that would be adequate. Again, we can put a concrete pad that will hold either one, and then the decision. I fielded a phone call from a gentleman at neighbors to the Perrin Creek one in Gloucester, and he's like, "Well, we had one there, and people were throwing dead carcasses in there." And I said, "Well, I had that at Little League. I mean, we had a turkey got thrown in our dumpster, and it was awful." Yeah. I mean, it was. Now I know who did it. So you came all the way to Matthews, but. It's an operational thing, and that's what I told the gentleman. I said, look, if it's a problem, then you can make a change. You can take the dumpster, there's no infrastructure besides the pad it's sitting on that has to go in or come out. So you can try it, and if it is being abused, you take it out. But again, there's options and things we're looking at on those.
Well, I'll just finish that discussion we had out in the hallway at the public outreach was, a lot of the difficulties the neighbors have with public sites is that they are used infrequently and they're out of sight, so people can do some pretty nefarious stuff because there's not that many people down there with eyes on.
And this is exactly that type of site.
Exactly. So some of that gets addressed if it starts being used more, because now you can't hide so well if you have it being used more. It's counterintuitive because the neighbors are really concerned because they're having all these problems now, but it may be caused because it's not used that much. It's used just enough for some of the more nefarious things, whereas if it's used on a more consistent and just an increased amount of use, it's harder to do those things. It would be an interesting study for
Yes.
someone to do at VCU's planning department on that type of concept, because you don't hear about a lot of problems at some of the well-used sites because they're so used you can't get by with it there without someone noticing and reporting it. But just an observation.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 ways to look at everything, and that is something we've discussed. Again, back to this site, we did receive some comments from the director at Camp Yankotank. And I've responded with an email, and we've gone back and forth, so we haven't met yet, but I know both my kids went to camp there, and I see it as an opportunity, but maybe that's because I'm involved in the project, but to me, it's a learning opportunity. And I know when we met with the Croxtons, he said, they were like, well, I want to spend the money by going into all the high schools and schools and teaching kids about aquaculture and the whole industry. And so that was my mindset with response to Camp Yankatank. Well, if you incorporate it into the learning experience at the camp, I mean, let the kids see the working waterfront, see how, I think it's interesting, see where their food comes from. So I think just like you're saying,
But there is the problem. There's not seafood coming in there. That's it.
well, there's not seafood. Stampers Bay is probably the most unique out of the 11 because there's not a dock there now. And it's hard to say, there's seafood, we've got catch data, there's lease grounds
A
all the way
lot
up.
of it's mine, I know. You have catch data, got it for VMRC, and it's not going to be compatible to one of the sites on the Rappahannock. And I don't know if your presentation here is about over or whatever, but the one thing that I haven't heard, and I'll just bring it up, is that getting to Stamford's Bay is one of the most dangerous intersections we have in the county.
It is.
And just as Matt said, the more people we put down there to offset something, the more people we put through that intersection. Now we want to attract and put more boats down there. It just seems like we're fleecing the federal government to say that it's a commercial waterman, but it's going to be a recreational site, and it's going to be a traffic issue up there where somebody's going to get hurt. It's one of the most dangerous ones we have. And like I said, I'm not for it, but I do appreciate all your efforts, and I am 110% behind doing what we need to do there at Wake.
Well, let me ask the question then. I think the question then is this an opportunity for the board to maybe remove a site that they wouldn't want to see go forward? Or does that kind of throw a wrinkle in the overall application?
We would not replace it at this stage.
Should we just take this one off the list for now, maybe?
We could take this one off the list.
But they're still in time to do that.
Yes, and you haven't told, again, in fairness to Mark, the way Mark is doing it, he's doing it site by site. And so if this one comes off, we're going to lose some of the benefit that he's calculating.
Okay.
But it'll be just from that one site.
Or maybe it's delayed until next year or the year after.
Yeah,
I'm asking the question because if it's something the board feels very strongly about and passionately about, maybe this isn't a site you're comfortable with, take it off.
Mr. Chairman, I just think, we need to discuss it a little bit more, but I just know on being on the planning commission, and they talked about certain sites and how they did that, but like they said, it's a multi-purpose site, and not just for working watermen, but for a lot of other things. And my issue on it too, that don't even talk about a dumpster, just trash cans. Dumpster shouldn't even be talked about. Mm-hmm. That's all I'm just saying right now. But it's more also, I remember in the meeting, recreational. So it's a multi-use. I guess there's some people on the planning tank that got a kayak or whatever. Or if you do put a little pier there, they could maybe fish off it or whatever. But it was more of a multi-purpose use, not just working watermen for oysters and stuff like that. But also in saying that, I'm just saying you got grant money for certain areas, and to say and it's already been in process of working on this, and work has been done on it. And now you're going to say, nah, we don't want it there, we're going to put it somewhere else. And when you delay, a lot of times delaying things is cause confusion on getting things done, put it that way. And all of us not going to agree on the sites, but being in the planning commission, these sites have already been negotiated and picked out, and you did the work on it. And it's not just for only one thing, and that's what we got to understand. Not just only one thing, Bill. I know you don't like the area, and maybe a lot of things going on there, but there's other things. Once it get done, you can put solar cameras up there that to deter different things, that activity that's going on. Because with technology now, they got the solar camera, and you can put it right on the phone, and Matt get something anytime something go on. But I'm just saying, we got things that are in place now, and now we want to change it. And we got 1, 2, 3 in our area. Some of them only have one, but anything is not going to be perfect. And a lot of times when you stop holding and handling and slow things up, you end up getting nothing. And the grant monies have already been processed on these areas that we can get. And I'm just, you know, you got your opinion, I got mine. My opinion, leave it alone right now. It's not gonna, everybody's not gonna agree on it. I mean, it might be a lot of things going on, but when you get federal money and grants that coming in and now you saying, nah, we're gonna stop this and do that, now it just take another turn on things that they're trying to accomplish here in Middlesex County. Because like I'm saying, it's not only for oystermen. It's not just only for that. It's a multi. But it's saying waterfront.
Yeah,
It's saying it, but if you look down at the bottom of that thing that it had multi, there's another name for it, multi something.
Multimodal.
Multimodal. Define multimodal for me.
So it's just multiple means of transportation.
Right.
I
So
mean,
it's
multiple.
multi
It's-
things,
yes.
multi things, right.
When we
So,
started.
and I will, before I forget this comment.
Yeah.
So, again, live in Matthews, I travel Stamford's Bay, or make that intersection. I recognize, and I told our team right away, I said, the intersection there is problematic. I've come up on accidents many times. I had to go all the way around one time. But if you have this facility and then you go for smart scale funding or you go for other funding, that's only going to improve your application. By having a facility at the end here, if you go back to the states or go to the federal and say, we really need to, because I know y'all have looked at that in the past.
Well, and
Looked at
that
intersection.
triggered my memory on something.
they had-
Dave, didn't VDOT do something, or aren't they gonna do something at that
Yeah,
intersection?
put a roundabout there.
Turn around.
That's gonna be their roundabout.
Yeah.
Right.
They're putting a traffic circle in it there.
You're looking at it.
The heading
Didn't they
on the
approve
grant, the heading on the project
so that's
says working
approved.
waterfront.
Okay, I thought, my memory jogged on that. I think that's where they were putting their first traffic circle. Okay.
Yeah, they did talk about it.
The heading on all this has been working waterfront. And we've talked about for the commercial watermen. And now we're getting 30% plans, and one of them is going to be for recreational, basically. And that just, to me, goes against how it was started in the first place. Like I said, the one at Wake, it's a perfect fit. Federal government, we're doing just what they want us to do there with the money if we get the grant. This one is not. We're deceiving.
So I will just say that, again, this has no dock now. We did talk to buyers and distributors in the industry, and they said
Can you give me that list of who you talked to in the Yankee Tank, Waterman? I'd like to see them, because I know all of them.
I can give you the list of all the distributors. They weren't, I mean, they own lease holdings, and, I mean, I've got a big team, but I'm happy.
I mean, Lee Walton has all the oyster ground around there. That's one person, and he takes it off
yes.
himself. So, I mean, and he's only there when he's there, decides to harvest. So I'm not seeing these other watermen that y'all have talked to about this. I guess that's what I would like.
So, but again,
The
that's.
BMRC has that data they can give you.
And they've shared that, but what that site is not just serving up the Piankatank. It is serving the bays all the way down to Milford Haven. I mean, if necessary. I mean,
That's a good run, yeah. I mean, we go down to Haven, they've got boats launched there, right?
they do.
Okay, yeah, so.
So the other information is information that you'll get from the final report, but it summarizes the site assessments. And the reason I did put this in, and this is part of the grant, yes, we recognize this is a working waterfront. Again, it's not just seafood, but it's the maritime contractors, the dredgers, the dock builders, the shoreline contractors, but.
Well, let me just ask
we
you this,
also
and you
know
talk about the
that-
maritime contractors. We've got, what we have down there at Wake Boat Landing now, the county's responsible for the pier. And sometimes you'll go down there and the pier's torn up, and you hear all kinds of stories about, man, how did this get torn up? Because of some of its uses. Now, you know yourself, you go take an excavator and start pulling daggone piling off of concrete, you know what's gonna happen to the concrete, it's gonna get scarred.
It's gonna hold up a lot better than the wood, yeah.
What I'm saying is, are we gonna allow that to go on? If we're responsible for this dock, we're gonna allow that kind of construction to go on? I understand working waterfront, I understand using the ramp and all, but now you're gonna place stuff on the concrete and start pulling it off there. It seems like there's a lot of room for error there, a lot of room for tearing up that dock, maybe concrete or wood.
So, I mean, that is a valid point, so. I'll flip through these. The data collection is all going to be part of the final report, how that was summarized. You mentioned we did get data from VMRC that broke it down by county, the catch, where it was coming in. Again, we also looked at equity in the peninsula, and Stampers Bay is in a Justice 40 zone, and which does give it extra credence at the federal level. So that it's odd, but there are lines where just on the other side of the bridge, it's not. So some of that went into the selection process as well. The opportunity zones, the Justice 40 zones.
When we talk about Camp Yankee Tank, and your children been there, so have mine, and they take those canoes and they go over to the island and all kinds of good experience and everything, and now we want to put more boats running through them as they go back and forth through their island.
But
And
just
they
as you
create
said, I
traffic.
don't think, it's not going to be Menchville Marina where we have 30 boats coming in and out per hour. And so I think it's going to be a smaller, much smaller scale. And so, yes, because I think that's a great opportunity to go across to the island. But I don't think it's going to be the major port that is going to cause conflict with Camp Yankee Tank's mission. So all this data, the Waterman survey will be included as part of the final report. As you mentioned, the fishing grounds, we have a database of all the Baylor grounds, the private lease grounds, all of that is part of the research that went into this. And then this is kind of what the graphic that we've developed working with the seafood industry, and we're in the process of developing a similar graphic, kind of an infographic for the other maritime industries. But basically to educate the grant reviewers, but also the general public, if they're not aware of how the process works from harvest to pick up, and then where it goes from there. There are multiple places, and that's dependent on the type of catch, whether it's a crab or a fish, finfish, or whether it's a shellfish. Shellfish has to go through a different inspection process. But then also the process of the recycling the oyster shells. That's something that we feel, even Stampers Bay, they have these spat-on shells that need to go back into the water. And if they can bring their truck down, offload onto their boats that are specialized to replanting those shells, and they can do it and cut the travel time, instead of going from Milford Haven, come out of Stampers Bay, that's improving those oyster grounds along the Piankatank by improving that opportunity. So this graphic is really meant to show the process and what we are projecting the improvements to be. Any of the dashed kind of magenta colors are areas that we're seeing improvements. We're not improving the back end. We're not improving how the product gets from the distributor to California. I mean, that's still going to go through the same process. But we did create this graphic to show the spread of the product that comes out of the Middle Peninsula. It's going all over the country, going all over the world. So again, I mentioned the holes that are in the network. What we're trying to show is how we're improving kind of the heat maps.
Why was Waterview overlooked? That seemed to be a good site there to me. I don't understand why it was overlooked.
Water.
We got Parrots Landing up there, it's a TGIF.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a DWR site. And then we actually got a lot of comment about Shores O'Rourke being up for sale and the hole that's going to leave. And we looked at, because there is money available through the same funding source to purchase properties. But it was the timing, you weren't going to purchase something and apply for a grant all in 6 months. So that is something in the future, because that Waterview and that whole section up there, Urbana, there's not a public, the public marina in Urbana it's not permissible for commercial watermen to use that. So again, that speaks to that hole, and we do see, as long as the funding sources in DC continues, you could apply next year for an acquisition or to help with that hole. But that is a major concern that the watermen expressed over and over about losing access to slips and places to dock their boats along the Rappahannock. So I've covered just about all of this. This is my last slide here. What we're doing, I've mentioned we're in the 30% designs, we're updating cost estimates, we're developing draft joint permit applications, and we are going through the NEPA compliance, which the NEPA compliance is the National Environmental Policy Act, basically making sure we're not endangering any rare, endangered, threatened species or impacting historic properties. So that process is ongoing as well. It will not be complete by January 30th. Anybody that's done the NEPA process knows that goes much longer than this process. But we are applying for the grant on the 30th. With the PDC is applying for the grant on the 30th with our assistance. And then about 6 months later, we'll find out. And then we will have to then go from 30 to 100%, working with you all. Yes, I mean, as part of this will be federal money, and whenever there's federal money, there's a much more intensive public engagement process, mailers, individual reach out. So yes, I mean, if we're successful in getting the funds, there will be another rounds of public engagement.
If the funds are not available in the amount that you're looking for, I would assume, correct me if I'm wrong, that the 11 sites that you have, there would be a narrowing process based on the dollars that the federal assistance might be.
Yes, sir.
Correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I did print out any of the public comments. I did want to make sure, I know people are watching at home, we talked about all of these. There was concerns about,
Time of use,
yeah,
yeah, people using, like, the fishing pier.
the hours.
12 midnight,
hours
that's what
of
I was getting ready to
use,
mention.
And then, I mentioned this one a lot, the kayaking group was concerned about making sure they still had access to launch, and we are not restricting, with any of the improvements, we're not putting any restrictions that it's purely commercial. So, yeah, patrolling, maintenance, trash were major concerns. And then there was concerns just about lack of parking, and there is lack of parking. They're all small sites. There's not a single site that's an acre in size. So trailer parking, we're not, in all 11 sites, we're not adding additional trailer parking. There's just not room. We're not seeing that as the major use they may launch, but they also, a lot of times they launch and somebody takes the truck and trailer back home or back to another site. So we're not trying to turn these into major marinas. We're really trying to improve the offloading and unloading of the product in that process.
The wake site, during the oyster season, the start of it, there'd be nothing to see, a half dozen boats with the trailers there, oysters, some maybe even leave them there for the next day, so on and so on. So it has been very active.
Yes. I know y'all have other things on your agenda.
So I assume that the next time we talk to you be somewhere in excess of January the 30th, where you'll have better, more information about how you're going to look to proceed.
So I'm happy to email over the plans that they'll look more, and they won't look rendered. They'll look like your traditional blueprints, construction plans. I'm happy to send those over so you can make comments. If there is any appetite to pull a site, the sooner the better to let us know, because that would have a pretty big impact. But otherwise, yes, we would come back after the 30th and just give you an update, and then we'll be sitting back and waiting. We are, as I keep mentioning the report, once we get this grant applied for, we'll be wrapping up our report. And that includes recommendations for all 65 sites. I can't recall exactly how many are in Middlesex, but there's, I think, 17 or 18 sites in Middlesex. Some of them are purely the road ends in a ditch, and it's publicly owned, so, but we are taking all of them and saying, well, a kayak launch would be good there, or a fishing pier would be good there, or the pier you have here is good for X number of years, you may want to put it in your budget to replace it in the future. So you'll get that as a deliverable after we get through the grant application for all of your sites.
Wonderful.
And Mr. Chairman, the last thing I would just add is y'all are wrestling with the same issues all the other boards on the Middle Peninsula have wrestled with. There are many sites that just did not make the initial call because they were just politically impossible to utilize given the neighborhoods and the areas they were in. So you're doing the same thing they were doing. And so if, like Ricky said, if there are any that are just not palatable, let them know sooner rather than later.
Wonderful.
Yep.
Just one question. Assuming that everything, that the funding is there and we're going to proceed with the project, when should we expect the first boat to pull up and unload seafood?
Well, nothing happens quickly with the federal government. So, like, yeah, I mean, really, so it's mentioned here that we're drafting the JPAs. We are not applying because we don't really want to make the Army Corps and all those agencies upset at us at applying for all these sites and then not get the funding. So we won't even begin the environmental permitting process there until we know we've gotten the money secured. So
That's where the other 70% is.
yes, that's where, and so, again, 6 months for award notice, and then there's the whole agreement that's got to be worked out from the feds, and it took them last time a year just to do that. So some of the design can be being moved forward during that period, but you're realistically looking at 2 years at the earliest before shovels are in the ground,
Sounds good. Okay, thank you.
unfortunately.
Any other questions for Mr. Waite?
Thank you for all your discussions
Yes,
and
sir.
all your work. I appreciate it.
Yep, I'll piggyback on that too. Thank you very much for coming forward and talking about all of this, and I'm sure there'll be more questions coming to you at some point as well.
Yep, Matt's got my contact information, or I'm happy to share with anybody who wants to talk more.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along, item number 6, regular agenda items, budget supplement request 2025-22, proffers paid. Anne Marie.
Let me get our screen back up. Proffers are fees, hold on, let me catch up here, page 57. It's page 57 of your book. Proffers are fees charged to developers for structural impacts to the community. In Middlesex County, we primarily have the emergency services proffers. That is, when they're building a development, their proffers would be for fire, rescue, and sheriff's office. We keep a proffers fund. You've heard us talk about funds previously. We had a proffers funds to keep and track these receipts, but to this date, we've never had a policy to actually appropriate or spend or pay out these funds. Laws do require that we do that we spend the money. So what I've got in front of you today, and for the record, what I'll be doing is I'm establishing my own personal policy of every January, that is mid-year, I will come to you to say, we've collected these proffers, let's expend these proffers. So annually, it should be done. This hasn't been done annually, but we're going to start now. So what we've got here is an appropriation request of a total of $70,000. This $70,052, let me clarify. This will empty out your proffers fund, spending $7,500. I actually have the verbiage from the proffers agreement that for each lot $250 has to go to the volunteer fire department at the time of building issuance, $250 goes to the rescue squad, and $489 goes to the police or sheriff's department. So you'll see that on page 58. You'll see my little spreadsheet going on. So what we're doing today is we're going to ask for you to take the $7,500 and spend that for the Hartfield Fire Department, $7,500 to the rescue squad, and the balance would go to the capital projects funds to be used in part for the sheriff's office and the other towards capital projects, coming in very timely right now as we're starting to prepare our budget. So at this time, I ask that you approve budget supplement request 2025-22.
And, okay, I get the rescue squad and Hartfield Fire Department, the transfer to capital fund. Why are you not expending it all out at this point?
Why am I not I don't have an expense for it. So let me bear with me.
Okay,
Because these are monies for the sheriff's office and you have a sheriff's facility going on, I'm going to put it in the capital projects funds where that goes. So that amount, let me go to the bottom here.
okay,
The $15,648 will be allowed to be expended towards the sheriff's office as that occurs, whatever they may end up needing. But it's got to be spent on, help me with the words. I think the words is needs related to growth, right? So it can't be, let's say I want to just replace everybody's vests. You can't do that. It's got to be needs related to growth. Ergo, the police station is very valid. The sheriff's office is very valid. Right, capital improvements to that end, that it is not just a replacement, it is a new item. The other use, I don't know why, when we had Marsh, I don't know what Marsh Pungo or Hartfield Greens are, but those were for miscellaneous capital improvements. So we figured during this upcoming budget process, which we're all working on right now, we would be able to finally say, that is $39,000, 404, that will be showing as a revenue in your capital projects funds next year. It'd be an appropriable fund balance. So that's why we're doing it that way. We're doing it now, so we can do it as part of the budget forthcoming.
okay. Questions?
Is there any way that 55,000 could go to the rescue squad? Or not going to meet the
The
criteria?
39,000,
They're getting 7,500.
right. They
But
can't
how
get
about
the,
going and give them the 55,000 too?
nope, they
Is it-
can't get the 55.
Is that because they don't meet the criteria? Is that what you're
Nope,
saying?
because 15,000 of that has to go to the sheriff's office. So there's, jump to page 59. I think you've got it, I saw you looking at it. Jump ahead to page 59, and you can see 7,500 is the fire department, 7,500 is the rescue squad. That next number that says 15,648 is for sheriff's office, and the 39,404 is for other capital. So could it?
So we could put the $39,000 towards the rescue squad.
If they had a capital improvement, though. So it's got to be something related to expanded levels of service. Am I describing that well? Because
You
proffers
are.
are new to me. I've not handled them before.
Yeah, the purpose, and Dave, you may want to come up and talk about proffers if we get deep questions on it, because it's been a minute since I had to deal with it as a planning director. But as you entertain a rezoning request, when you have a rezoning request, one of the ways a board, or one of the avenues that a board doesn't have to approve a rezoning request is if it's creating a capital burden on the community. The other main one is it's not in compliance with your comprehensive plan. But staying with proffers for a minute, so what a developer will do in order to get a rezoning decision is saying, hey, I'm going to help mitigate the impact. I recognize my development, whatever it is going to have an impact on the rescue squad. So therefore, I'm going to specify $250 of every lot go to the rescue squad to help mitigate that impact. And sheriff's department and fire department, and I think that's what's shown in the Fairfield Farm the project, is that of the 989, 250 goes to the rescue squad, 250 goes to Hartfield Fire Department, and 489 go to the sheriff's office. Now, you'll notice the Marsh Bungo is 24,000 to be used at the discretion of the county for capital expenditures. So the rescue squad is going to be buying an ambulance coming up. I've overpronounced ambulance, didn't I? But they're going to be buying an ambulance. Well, that's a capital improvement. It's rolling stock, just like a school bus.
As long as it's not a replacement. Remember, if it's a replacement, it's not expanded levels of service. That's why I'm very cautious about how we address that.
Generally speaking, in my experience with proffers, Dave can correct me, and of course the county attorney can, if you're buying capital improvements and you're providing that expense, it's an allowable charge. Where you get in trouble is where you're spending it on operation money, operational expenses that you normally would be spending anyway. Arguably, a new ambulance is caused because of use, and that is growth-related. I don't think we'd be
Ouch,
held in
that's
court
good.
for helping the rescue squad buy an ambulance, for instance, or a fire engine, for that matter. The more you use them, the more they wear out, the more you have to replace them. Same way with school buses. So that's the 30-second elevator spiel on proffers. One important point that Anne Marie has brought up, and just to reiterate, we are required to spend them. We can't just hold them forever. And we're spending these monies now for these related purposes, yeah. So use them for the sheriff's office, use them for the rescue squad, and we just have to work that into the memorandum of understanding. And that's a segue to a later discussion in my
Okay.
report.
And later discussion too, but I just can't resist. The amount for the sheriff's department, since it's capital improvements and we're doing a new sheriff's office, can that be designated for that?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so the transfer, would we give the money to the sheriff's department and then ask them to give it back?
No, sir, I'm giving it straight to the capital improvements fund. So both of those, the amount that is undesignated, if you will, and the amount that goes to the sheriff's office is both going into the capital improvements fund for appropriation in this upcoming budget. So again, and I keep looking at Matt because the capital improvements tends to be his favorite area of making sure that we've got enough revenues coming in. So he tends to babysit that. So yeah, what you'll, you could
Okay.
what?
I think they go back
Randy
to the
suggested
rescue.
a change order for the appropriation of that money.
Well, in theory, yes, that's true. But,
You want to get that detail.
but
I
however,
think Randy's trying to be creative there.
however one wishes to appropriate it, but I'm doing it now so that we've got it in the budget
Right.
process.
Wonderful.
So what I'm hearing is that we need a motion to approve this budget supplemental request form 2025-22 with the direction from the board that any monies that can be divided between the rescue squad's purchase of a new ambulance and/or the sheriff's renovated building, that is the board's desire, that those are the things they wish them to spend. If there's any discretion on where you can spend it, those are the two categories.
Right, I don't know that I need their motion to indicate that. To me, it's just an appropriation because they've already got that in writing, that that's how they can.
Oh, okay, well then it
Is
sounds
that-
like you
am
just
I-
need a motion to approve it then.
Okay.
So that you can carry out.
Wonderful.
You were concerned because they're concerned. I think that's why you wanted it expressed.
Yeah, I just was offering that to see if that addressed
That's
board
purely,
members.
it's purely acceptable either way, Heather.
No, they decide.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
I
not
just was
to,
offering it to.
Yeah.
not,
They decide
not,
they won't do that.
just to say this is yet another example of one of those things that has been on our list of many things to get done, and Anne Marie's taken it upon herself to get it done, and, yeah,
Without knowing what I'm doing.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Wonderful.
So it's, the proffers have been with us for a while. There haven't been that many, but,
Right.
what little we have, we need to manage
But
properly, and I
might I
think she has.
add that, so this was today. I prepared this, last week. I think someday this week, we got another 4 at 989. So by next year, you're going to have a little bit more to reappropriate. It
Gotcha.
gets hard when you've only got that small of a fund to spend.
Okay.
I'm just trying to keep this thing simplified. Y'all calling the word profit and all this. Now, this is the money that Fairfield gave the county to, and they designated in your tax deductible anyway, to certain areas that we wanted to have it in. And it was the rescue squad, the fire department, the sheriff's office. So they gave us money in their budget as, we call it profit, but just money, like a nonprofit donation. They gave a donation.
No, No,
It's
sir.
not the same thing?
No, I'm sorry. I apologize, Mr. Williams. I want to be real, so we have to be very careful about proffers is a very magical word.
Yes, it
in the
is.
law, and especially given the changes in the law,
we can't
okay?
ask for 'em.
So we did not ask for them. That's correct, Mr.
Okay.
Harris. I want to be real clear, and Mr. Williams, we did not
You should
ask.
be
Oh, I'm not saying we
Yeah,
asked.
okay.
I said we
They-
gave. That's how come I said we gave.
You're right.
We-
What they do is every house they build, I make up a figure. For every house they build, $1 goes to the sheriff, $1 goes to the rescue, and $1 goes to the fire station.
Okay.
So it's dependent on each house. So as these developments come back to life, Fairfield Trace, for example,
Okay.
then you'll start seeing more and more come in. And we have to use them for very specific things.
But who designated how much we give to each one of them?
So that is typically the developer. The developer, we would have
Oh,
to
it's
go back.
already, so we approve night at the money that the prophets that he gave, whether it's gonna be 250 and 489, and, we can't change it for it. If I wanna get if we wanna give everything to the, rescue squad, we
No,
can't
sir.
do that.
No,
So
sir.
our hands are tied. I'll give you something and tell you
Yes.
what to do with it.
Yes, and that is what the
Oh,
law,
okay.
well, that's what the law says. Now,
that's what
that
the
is
law
not
said, okay.
that is not in the purview of this
Okay.
board to change,
I understand.
unless we could convince Richmond, which, you know.
And I'll add this, I'll add a political element to it. It wasn't boards like ours that were the problems. It was the boards that made up some of the Northern Virginia communities that really went way too far with the whole property thing.
That's what we gotta do, you know. I'm looking at the 250, and we add it on up, and, you know, we do the math. And if we give you something, I give you something today, it's gonna manage you later on, though. I'm not gonna do it the
I'm with
same
you, Mr.
way.
Williams. It would be
I should do
wonderful
like you want,
if we
but
could.
It's gonna be managed somewhere,
Yeah.
you know. So,
Yeah.
no, I do understand, what y'all saying, now, don't make this thing too complicated.
That's, proffers are, I feel like it's one of the most complicated and yet simplest words.
Thank you, because I was very confused, so I
Yeah.
appreciate your,
Proffers are as clear as mud, and especially as the law changes, but we are bound by what was done many moons ago.
Okay, so,
But legally, we can give the 39,400 to the rescue squad in addition to the 7,500. If they can justify why they could use it.
I think that would be a board
be-
decision, because that was given to, that was proffered to the county for, at the discretion of the county for capital expenditures or other use not
Okay.
identified.
I like
I don't think so either.
I would like for us to talk, before we approve this, I would like for us to talk to the rescue squad and see if they maybe have a way or something that they're looking at that would give them the criteria for us to be able to, don't get me wrong, this is a great
Yeah.
thing. We got great organizations here. We all need them. They're all doing a great job and everything.
This
But
is
the-
a
but the
radar
rescue
Colonel
squad, we got
Potter
Randy here,
moment.
and he's
'Cause
bringing up some items, and I
Yeah.
think any dollar we can help with rescue squad.
I spoke with the rescue squad's treasurer during our snow day. We were on the phone quite a bit, so this is radar Colonel Potter moment.
Yeah,
We've done it.
Okay.
I appreciate what you're saying. What my understanding with this is that we just accept the money, and then we decide
yes,
how we're going to disperse it.
correct, correct.
It's singled out here in 3 different.
Well, it's singled out in two.
Right, and it can still go to the capital funds, and you can spend it from the capital fund however you wish, as part of the budget process.
and
So
Bill,
I
I'll
think that's
just-
what you're directing.
Master of segues yet again, in my report, we'll be talking about the rescue squad in a little greater detail. These discussions are going to be incorporated into our memorandum of understanding that we're working with the rescue squad to develop right now, that Dave and I hope to have on your plate in February, March at the latest. Yeah.
I would prefer us not to delay distributing the 7,500 because I feel like it's been hanging over my head.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why I was trying to push that and then put the rest just in the capital projects fund for you all to do it in the next budget process, or sooner. You can certainly do it sooner.
Okay. Yes.
That's how I'll put it.
Yes. Okay. A motion would be in order
I knew I did that.
to
Oh, I'm sorry.
approve 2025-22.
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Jesse, second by Mr. Crittenden. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Bill Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Crittenden,
Yes.
Mr. Jesse.
Yes.
Mr. Don Harris.
Yes, motion's approved.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Moving on, citizens' appointments. Anne Marie, you're still on
Yes, sir.
the hot seat.
There are 3 citizens' appointments that we're requesting today. First of all, last month, we appointed someone to BZA who had ended up he determined himself not to be eligible for it. But since then, we did have one person who became eligible and wanted to be on the BZA, and that would be Jacqueline Taylor. Jacqueline Taylor, we're proposing she be recommended to the judge to be on the BZA. We also received an application from Ray Birch Jr. and Wayne Savage for reappointment to the Building Code Appeals. Ergo, we are requesting at this time 3 separate items. Reappoint Ray Birch, reappoint Wayne Savage, and recommend Jacqueline Taylor to the judge.
I only
Can we do those all at once?
Yes, and if I may, the only thing I would add to that, so it would be a motion to appoint Ray Birch Jr. to the Building Codes, to reappoint him to the Building Codes Appeal, to appoint Wayne Savage, reappoint him to the Building Code Appeals, to rescind the recommendation of Tony Kirk to the BZA, and to recommend the appointment of Jackie Taylor to the BZA. That would be the motion I'd recommend.
Thank you.
You can do it all at once.
Okay. Go ahead.
I would like to take this moment just to, all these people here that applied, I know them. They've been doing great work. Very appreciative of everything they've done. But there's times when we may see someone that volunteers to be one of these committees that no one on the board knows them. And I think going forward, we need to have a meeting with them or just talk to them one-on-one, or one of us, or either the committee that they're applying to should meet them to make sure that it's a good fit and make sure there's not something going on that we don't know about. Like I said, all these, there's no question whatsoever. But if some person comes up here and wants to volunteer their time, I want them to be able to volunteer their time. I sure do. But if none of us know anything about them, we do need to do due diligence to what we're putting them on and have a conversation. And that's all I'm saying.
I agree with you, Bill.
Well, and that came light with the gentleman that was not a resident of the county. Maybe it was a little premature in him being added until we found that information out. But yes, I think we need to do a little better job on vetting the process. For instance, the EDA has several people that are looking to replace a spot there, and we've asked the EDA to come back with a recommendation of who they think would be a viable person for that. I've done that. I've asked them for that information before we vote on it.
I don't know if it's helpful or not, but previous board members were very, every board's allowed to change its mind, but they were very adamant about picking from their constituents, and the board members themselves did what you were talking about, Mr. Harris. It was very much so they wished to do that. It wasn't left to the committee. I want to say this very diplomatically. The board members were very autonomous about who they wanted to put on those committees, and that was in their purview. So if that's no longer how the majority of this board feels, and you do want the committee, we just need to know those things, right? We're just still acting under previous boards' assumptions that they were talking to the people applying from their district for the committees.
We need to work with the committee.
Yeah.
And us as a board to ensure that there is some type of interview process, some type of vetting to know what's going on. Because if nobody knows them,
Yeah.
we don't know if it's a good fit or not.
Oh, I
That's
agree
all.
wholeheartedly, but I guess what I'm asking for is that needs to be like a majority decision by this board. Do you see what I'm saying? Like previously, we did it a different way, and I think what you're suggesting is
I don't think we're
great.
doing it differently, because if someone walks through that door and they want to volunteer, I want to do everything I can to help get them on that committee or that board, because they're taking their time.
Absolutely.
At the same token, we have a board and a committee that we need to be upfront with them and give them the opportunity too. If one of these board members says, hey, I know that person, or I've talked to that person, boom, they're gonna get my vote. No problem. But if none of us know it, we're gonna kind of look at each other and we're gonna have to look, maybe someone on the committee knows them and they can vouch for them, and that would be fine. But we need, I think, to do just a little bit better job, that's all.
I don't think we're trying to defer the process of how we've done it in the past. I think we're looking at enhancing more information about if some of us don't know who we're talking about. So,
And that's just direction we need to give administration so they know that. I guess what I'm trying to say is, these are really good ideas. We just didn't know, Matt, weigh in here. I'm trying, because it's
Well,
not
I'm
my
waiting for you
purview,
to
it's
take a breath.
administration. I'm like, yeah, I'm trying
All
to.
right, so take a breath and let me take a stab at it. You know, you as board members know your constituents better than most people. However, we have a lot of folks moving into the county, and you are faced with more and more constituents that you may not know your whole life.
right.
When you don't know a constituent that well and they express an interest in being on a committee, you need to vet them. We need to vet them. So without a doubt, it's kind of easy when you've known somebody their whole life, right? And we're transitioning away from that because we got a lot of new folks moving into the county, and you may not know them as well. And I know none of the board members and staff do not want to ever recommend somebody to a committee that ends up being, oh my gosh, they're on the run from the law somewhere. And we didn't check that out. So I see exactly where you come from. I caught the tail end of the conversation, but I had a constituent call me with some concerns about some different issues. Talked to him for a good long time. It's not an issue when the board members know the individual. Like Reggie, you've probably known people in Middlesex your whole life. You know who would be good here or good there. Exactly, and hold them up here behind that podium. And that's not as big an issue, but when it's somebody that maybe you don't know that well, and the staff doesn't know that well, then yeah, we probably do need some policy in place where we vet them.
No, I got a question. We normally have a little resume on the person. Where's that? Because, was it in the board packet, the resume of the person?
Their application, it's an application.
But I'm just saying, you know, because one name, I ain't gonna tell you, but I didn't know it was the same person. And I couldn't tell from the resume. That's all I'm just saying. Well, anyway, we're gonna leave that alone. Yeah,
Okay,
that's what I'm saying.
should we consider a better resume?
Yeah, but
Better
I knew the
form?
name.
It sounds like the board's wanting
I name it. I said to myself,
administration to
that
take
can't
a
be the
more
same person.
active role in vetting, and that is a change from previous board,
ain't
if they
doing
don't
that.
know them. So, I mean, I guess,
Yeah, I don't know how to do that.
And if I may,
I
let
just
me,
was trying to get clarification, because y'all get frustrated with this, but we're acting under the old board's direction, so we just, I think we
Well-
need more vetting. I don't disagree. Like,
Well-
I think these are great things, but you've got to tell us to do it.
yeah, let me state it a little different way. As an elected official, one of the honors and privileges you five gentlemen have is you're elected by the citizens of Middlesex to serve on this board. And one of those privileges and honors that you get is selecting people that you know to put on these committees. The first thing you should be looking at is people that you know would do a good well on this committee or that committee, because you know them better than we do. You've lived with them your entire life. That is a privilege that y'all have. And as such, we don't like to trespass on that, but so much. I have been asked as planning director countless times, hey, what do you think about so-and-so for the planning commission? Hey, what do you think about it? Yeah, because, I mean, we come across people all day long that are interested in something, but do y'all know them? If you do, great. If you don't, then, well, maybe we need to vet them a little bit. We get it. That all stops, though, if you know people to put on these things.
Correct. I agree with what you're saying,
Yep.
and I think that's a process we kind of need to look at. But through that, I don't want to do anything to discourage people from applying to volunteer, though.
So it's a balance, right? Yeah.
Okay, where are we?
We're looking for a motion.
We're looking for a motion for the reappointment of Ray Birch Jr., the reappointment of Wayne Savage, both to the Building Code of Appeals, and Jacqueline Taylor to the BZA,
And to rescind your recommendation to appoint Tony Kirk to the BZA.
and that. So I need a motion.
What was that last one you said?
That was a gentleman that he didn't reside in,
It just wasn't, Mr. Kurt was recommended at a couple board meetings ago, but it's been determined at this time that that would not be a good fit.
okay? So I need a motion, please.
So move.
So moved by Bill Harris,
Second.
and seconded by Mr. Crittenden. Any further discussion on the three people that we're talking about? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Bill Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Crittenden,
Yes.
Mr. Jesse,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Don Harris.
Yes, the motion for those two reappointments and one Jacqueline Taylor on the BCA, and I'm assume, Ms. Anne Marie, that you will contact them, or Shanae will contact them to let them know that we did approve them. Okay, wonderful, thank you. All right, item number 7, administrative updates. Cigarettes tax, that's in your file folder, page 68, report only. Staff reports, report only, 69 to 71.
And I
Mr.
have
Walker, do you have something you
Yeah,
want to
I have a
add to
couple of items, and Mr. Chairman, I recognize I'm standing between you and dinner in a closed session, and I understand we have a public hearing on the capital improvements plan at 7, so I'm going to try to be brief, but I do encourage y'all to ask any questions you may have. The first and foremost, and perhaps the most important, we were notified by the rescue squad over the holidays and again on Friday of their financial situations. One of the things that I'm going to ask the board for tonight is authorization to take over paying the ESS paid staff for the Deltaville cruise starting in January. I think if we can start immediately, it will help solve the hemorrhaging of cash that the organization is experiencing. Don't want to go into a lot of details of that. They were very clear on their request over the holidays and at our work session on the 3rd. To that note, we think covering the ESS cruise for the Deltaville station will cost us anywhere between $50,000 and $60,000 a month. We can cover that in the existing budget till probably about April, and then we may need to supplement that line item. We have $215,000, I believe, still in non-departmental reserve for capital in this year's budget. That's probably where I would ask for a line item transfer to occur from that fund into the Rescue Squad's fund to pay for that. So no worries on how to pay for it. That's the good news tonight. There are other issues that David Lehman and I are going to work through with the Rescue Squad's leadership, one of which is developing a more long-term memorandum of understanding, because we suspect this is not going to be a one and done. This is going to be an ongoing thing until changes and until the Rescue Squad can get on their feet with the volunteers. So we will plan to have a memorandum of understanding outlining the longer term and more formal relationship with the squad in February or March. Not least of which is how we may handle future capital improvements for the Rescue Squad and how that mixes in. But tonight, I am asking for the board's authorization to allow Anne Marie and I to start covering the ESS cruise for Deltaville, like we do in Urbana.
Okay, anything else?
I got a couple other things, but I won't give you time for that one. That's the most important.
Okay, and the memorandum of understanding that you're talking about putting together, is that going to be on a time frame?
Well, it will be very similar to what we had with the Central Middlesex Squad. We've got to adapt it for the Middlesex Squad because now they're the county as a whole. It's going to cover our relationship and funding of the organization ongoing, finishing out this fiscal year on a month-to-month basis, which is what we're doing, but starting July 1, how that longer relationship will look like. I don't know if that answers your question specifically.
Sort of. My question,
Yeah, we've got a draft that we're working on, and Heather's involved in reviewing that.
okay, and just to kindle the rest of the discussion, we've talked to the Rescue Squad about some additional things that they may need to do. That's the only reason I asked for the memorandum of understanding. We may not be locked in to what we're locked in currently.
I follow you now, tracking with you. Yes, they have a number of endeavors that they're underway with that we would memorialize in that memorandum, that if they're successful, they may not need that level of support forever. their volunteer incentivization, different things of that nature. We'll try to cover as much of that in the memorandum of understanding as we can.
Okay, so, go ahead, sorry.
That excuse me, $50,000 to $60,000 figure, does that include the money that we would get from the insurance?
Well, we would receive 100% of the revenue coming from insurance on the calls the ESS staff
handles, right.
run. I think the rescue squad heretofore has said they would like to keep the insurance money
They
for their
did.
volunteer squads. And that average, the reason I can't tell you it's going to be X amount of dollars every month is because it's basically whatever the volunteers can't cover. If the volunteer rescue squad crews cover more, it may be less. If they can't, and they don't have the crews available to cover more of the calls, and we have to pay the ESS staff to cover those shifts, then it would be
Right, I would just
more
want
costly.
to make sure that was the net amount.
Yeah.
When we including the reimbursement that we get.
No, that's the expense of paying the crews. The net amount, I'd have to get you. I think their estimated amount of reimbursement from insurance was 500 and something thousand for the Deltaville crew in 2024, according to their data. But we'll spell that out, or try to spell that out a little better for you in the
Okay.
memorandum of understanding.
Because the net would probably not be as much of a sting as the,
That is correct. But I want to give you, the worst before I give you the best. If we cover those crews starting in January, it's going to help solve the hemorrhaging of cash the organization's experiencing. And we will be receiving those revenue funds to offset that.
I just got one question. The 50,000 that we need, we talking about,
50 to 60, yeah.
50 to 60,000, we talking about shortfall to meet the payments for the month.
No, we're actually talking about taking over, covering.
No, but I'm talking, that's what I'm asking. If we're talking about shortfalls for the month, that if you got $100,000 worth of bills and you don't have more than 50,000, you need 50,000. Is it a shortfall or you just want us to just take over the bills?
I would characterize it this way, Reggie. The rescue squad cannot continue to afford to pay the ESS crews, as they stated Friday, and continue to pay all the other operational expenses. So they're asking us to take over the payment of those crews, like we do in Urbana, to help make them solvent more longer term.
I got
That's
what
a
you're saying.
fancy way
So
of saying that
it's-
they will
it's a-
have shortfalls
It's
if
a
we don't
shortfall,
take
it's
it
a
over.
short where you don't have enough money, you need to pay your bills, and you need money from the county.
They are pulling money from their reserves to pay the ESS crews, is what they've told us. Yes, sir.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not saying it quite the way you are, but it's.
Yeah, but I
essentially-
want to try to keep it as simple as I can, we sweeten it up a little bit. And when you shortfalls, you got less money than what you need to pay your bills.
Yeah.
And then you want help basically from the county. We can fix it up any way you want to. And I had a good, talk with the rescue squad, I know
Right.
where they at. But I just don't like we keep on spinning around the curve. We got a shortfall because the way we going now, they'll be in the hole and we got to support them. Regardless of what we do, we got to support them, so.
We're going to be optimistic that they can implement certain changes that could help make that, as you call it, a shortfall disappear. What we've been asked to do is take over the ESS crews and funding them on their behalf. The reason I don't want to call it a shortfall, to be completely transparent, is I don't want the county to get so in the middle of their operations that they don't feel like they have some autonomy still. I think they need that autonomy to continue to function as a volunteer rescue squad. And we've been requested to take over funding the crews because that's a clear line of demarcation. We fund the paid crews that we need because we don't have the volunteers to run the calls, just like we do in Urbana. We're not really getting into what their power bill is, what their gas bills are, things of that nature. We may have more partnership involvement in that as a result of the memorandum of understanding, but heretofore, we've just been asked to cover the cost of the crews.
I want to make sure we don't do anything to submit to bother all those volunteers that have been doing what they've been doing over the years. I want
100%.
However we do it, I want us to support and keep those volunteers strong. If they're not running calls, they're still supply great service to the Middlesex County.
And Bill, I'm so glad you said that because one of the worries that I have, is the citizens hear this discussion and say, oh, well, the county's paying for the rescue squad now, so I don't need to donate time or money to the, no, that's not what we're doing. We really want to encourage citizens to step up and volunteer and continue to write those donations, go to the bingo games, help the rescue squad stay cash solvent.
They're a great group, and we need to do everything we can to keep that volunteer group going.
And I can speak for David Lehman and I, we want to support them any way we can to do that. And the auxiliary. You know, we can't leave them out because that's their funding arm. And so I want to be very careful how we say this. What I'm asking for authorization to do is start funding the paid crews on their behalf, similar to what we do in Urbana for Deltaville.
Well, we've been very clear with the rescue squad, gentlemen. We've been very clear that we want to help them achieve their goal and get where they are and provide the service to the county. But if we can't get the ship right-sided, we'll have to take some hard looks at what we're doing with that. That's been made very clear to them. Correct?
Well, I think y'all made that clear Friday.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Okay, so that's a long way to get back around to where we are. Would you give the motion again that you're
I
looking?
would like authorization to take over funding the ESS crews that are stationed in Deltaville on behalf of the Middlesex Rescue Squad, similar to what we do with Urbana squads.
I agree. I think that's what we need to do, and I'll make that motion.
Okay. And a second?
I'll second it.
Motion made by Mr. Randy Crittenden, second by Wade and Jesse. Getting tired. Any further discussion?
And I'd just like to say, and you know, it's just gonna be almost similar to what we're doing in Urbana, and you get the reimbursement on the calls from the paid crew, basically. So, you know, and then and I know you all understand that, but yeah, that's what it's all about.
Yep.
It's just.
Well, and to keep the service uninterrupted
Right.
until we have a final decision on what needs to happen or where we need to go.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, not to belabor the issue, I know they asked for other things Friday. We're going to address that with a memorandum of understanding, and that will be forthcoming. But this move takes care of the
Yes.
most immediate need.
That's correct. Okay, any further discussion? If not, roll call, please.
Mr. Bill Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Crittenden,
Yes.
Mr. Jesse.
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Don Harris.
Yes, motion's approved. All right,
Budget calendar.
county,
Almost. I got a couple more. That was the
Sorry.
most important.
I thought we already approved the budget calendar.
Well, y'all talked about it Friday, but y'all were going to vote on it tonight, I believe. And I think the general consensus, Shanae and I compared notes and our memories, the general consensus was that y'all like the no Fridays option, and we're fine with that. And except the one Friday on the 24th for the agency and staff, for them to come in and present their budgets. That's one that was kind of hard locked. But we will take that into consideration next year, and you will not have Friday work sessions next year, now that we know that that feeling's there. Again, I said this Friday, but I want to state it again for the minutes. This was not in any way, shape, or form staff dictating to the board, y'all need to meet, y'all have to meet on these dates. This is just what we've done in the past, assuming if we have not heard anything different from the new board, that y'all would want to continue that. These are your meetings, and you don't have to attend all of them. If they contradict a vacation or something, you just stay in the loop through me or through the chairman or through another board member, and you make sure your positions and feelings are heard. And it's your budget, so if you want to do things differently, let us know ahead of time, and we can build that in and build the logistics in and make it happen for you.
Are we not having a meeting this Friday?
We have a retreat this Friday, the board retreat that y'all scheduled. Now, that's not specific budget related. I could put it on here, and that way all your meetings are in one part, but that's the strategic retreat for the board.
Okay, so we're approving the drafted item of the No Fridays budget calendar.
Right, and with the change on the 22nd of being 4:30 at the Middlesex High School Media Center for our high school renovation discussion.
Correct.
And that's highlighted on your screen.
A motion would be in order to approve the budget calendar and the additional time change for the meeting on the January 22nd with the school board.
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Jesse. Thank you, sir.
Second?
Second by Mr. Bill Harris. Thank you, sir. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Crittenden,
Yes.
Mr. Jesse,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Bill Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Don Harris.
Yes, motion's approved for the budget calendar and the change of time for the school board meeting on the 22nd
Right.
of January.
So Shanae will get out calendar invites to all of you with these dates. The tentative to be determined dates, we probably won't, because last year it really confused people. Do we have a meeting tonight or not? No, you didn't set one. So we're not going to send out the to be determined dates. We just have them in the calendar in case you need them. We'll notify the media too that this is your adopted schedule.
Wonderful.
Okay?
What else you got, sir?
One final thing, and I'm going to pull up Google Earth.
Did I put it down already?
Yeah, we're fighting for the mouse button. Reggie brought it up briefly, and you were the master of segues there, because this ditch along the roadway going into the sheriff's office, many of you may have noticed our dirt pile's still there. What's Matt doing with that dirt pile? We heard a great idea. I think Dwayne and Reggie had come up with a potential idea of maybe putting pipe in this ditch and filling the ditch in to a certain degree or portion to allow for pull-in parking for the park. And that, if the board approves it, would be a good use of that dirt. We can use that dirt as fill material, put it around the pipe, and we can potentially incorporate that parking into whatever paving we do in the spring, coinciding with the sheriff's department. The board hasn't acted on that yet. That's why Ben hadn't heard about it.
You know, I would say, I know one of the committees, Ann Marie Wright would say, it came up, and I don't even know whether it included in the money or not, because it came up, they was gonna landscape that ditch back. And I said, well, instead of landscaping and making it all smooth and everything, why don't we just cover it up? Now, I know we're gonna have scenarios that some gonna come up with saying, well, it's right close to the asphalt driveway from the sheriff's office. Well, guess what? They're gonna have to do something different. And that's where it came at. And I don't know how we getting things lost. That is as well as the kid building, when they done the parking lot in the kid building. All of this is the same thing, and we gotta keep in mind also that we got a playground there. See, and all of a sudden, we putting everything around the playground instead of modifying that area. If we decide to put a Chick-fil-A back in place of the, look, I'm talking, if we put a Chick-fil-A in the place of that, we could put a Chick-fil-A in place of that cafeteria, it'd be pretty interesting. I didn't say that. I'm just talking, you know how,
You could run for re-election on that one, Reggie. Come on.
No, but the thing about it.
That's right.
The thing about, you know, you gotta be able to dream. You know, sometimes you can't get exactly what you want, but I'm gonna tell you, but a 3D can keep all the history you wanna keep just by mounting it. But I did say, and I don't know if Anne Marie remembered or not, but yeah, I did. I did talk to Anne Marie how to smooth the ditch out in parking. You're only gonna be resistance is from the asphalt over the other side going to the sheriff's office. And I guess they can gain a minute if they're speeding out there, you know, to get somebody that hurt. So you're gonna get that question, you know, that I don't want that because of that.
And I don't know why that didn't get factored into the plans when it first came up. I can't really speak to that, but when I heard about the idea, I thought it was a great idea. And then your planning director over there is probably going to have to look at it too from a soil and erosion and site planning perspective. But it's not a VDOT right-of-way. It's not a VDOT road. It's your road. So I think you have a little bit of flexibility there.
Is there?
If you want to do it.
Probably wouldn't still take care of all the dirt that's there, I'm thinking.
It'd take care of a good bit.
Well, I guess what I'm thinking is, let's say there's a little bit left. Anne Marie did a really good job with that kids park there.
Yep.
And I can remember being a kid and, you know, pile of gravel, pile of dirt, somebody's gonna get on top.
I feel you.
That sounds like a
Is there
sensory garden
any
to
way
me.
we want to incorporate a couple pile? I mean, have to be, you know, grassed over, so forth and so on, but we got the dirt right there. I mean, that playground looks great. Anyway, it's just a thought. It's just a thought. Don't have to have any answers. or
Wait,
anything.
but while he's saying that, can I say that I've been watching kids playing at that park. Do you know where they're really playing? Now that they're there, they're going over to that skate park, and the kids are just sliding up and down the skate ramps. I have a slide 20
That's
feet
in line
away.
with what Bill's saying. We need to give a mountain of dirt for them to get good and dirty, you know? Yeah.
What is the pipe we're talking about going in the ditch?
Well, so.
A drainage pipe, is that what we're talking
Yeah,
about?
you'd get some kind of drainage pipe, and we'd have to size it, we'd have to design it, and make sure we're not holding up the stormwater flow, but if we wanted to, we can get that stormwater in a pipe and cover it up, and maybe do some parallel parking, and use some of that dirt. I don't know if it would use it all, we'd still have some dirt left over for the sandbox or grading that site, but I thought it was a great idea. And if the board wants to pursue it, give us some direction tonight, we'll get it pursued.
Well,
Need a cost.
I think we would need some information on it, like what the potential cost might be of that.
Okay.
I would assume that you would get Mr. England involved with that?
Him and Dave, yes, sir.
Okay. How about let's get some more information and then provide it at our next meeting?
Maybe sketch it up,
Yep.
get some preliminary costs. Yes, sir. I think we got our marching orders.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to say something too, as a safety issue. Figuring putting a fencing through there, I mean, have a driveway if you're gonna have it. I know they say they're gonna smooth it off, but you need some type of fencing for a safety issue. A child gonna run across there and you got fire department, sheriff department. If you can have a driveway with some type of fencing, because a child can get gone.
Yeah.
So factor in a fencing, even though, you're gonna cover that, you have a park, and you still can park there, but you pull in and you park facing toward that fencing.
Yep. So you,
Versus just pulling in. I'm just looking at the concept of it, because I know you say smooth it off and you pull in, but you gotta have a safety issue on it
Right.
with the driveway on it. So have a fencing, factor a fencing all the way in a driveway to come in there. You can pull in and park, because, those deputies may come out there and going a little fast. Child run out there, that wouldn't be
They
good.
get
So we
excited.
gotta look at safety.
Yeah.
We gotta look at safety.
So
Whatever
maybe-
you do, look at that.
maybe a scenario where you have a pull-off access road separated by a landscaped island of some fashion with some pull-off parallel parking and a one-way in, or one-way out type of mentality.
Right,
That
yeah,
would
but
give
just
you
try to
that
factor-
safety
Y'all
thing.
just factor that in, but it gotta be safe. Gotta be safe.
Okay.
All right, we'll put that on y'all's plate.
All I need is a consensus on that, so Dave,
think you
Chip, and
have a
I will get
consensus.
with
We'd like
Reggie and Dwayne and see
Okay.
what we can do.
All
But
right.
we do have plans for that dirt, guys.
Okay.
We're gonna figure it
And
out.
And that was, you said only one, so that's your last item, is that correct?
Hey, Matt, wait, this was on my screen when I came up. You didn't have anything on this, did you?
I'm standing between them and dinner, but. Last thing, VACO training, if y'all are interested, let us know. You have the certified board members program, which, Bill, that's what we were talking about briefly.
fine.
That's multiple classes held at different places around the state. It's a little costly, but it's very worthwhile. And the Chairs Institute, Reggie and Don, if you're interested, I've been to that 3 times with 3 different chairs and vice chairs from 2 different counties. It's a very well-done institute, and you'd learn a lot. And I'd highly encourage you to do it if you care to. And that also bleeds into Legislative Day with Eva Marie there, perfect. You have Legislative Day at the Omni coming up, where we get a chance to talk to Keith and our senator. And if any of y'all are interested in going, please let us know, and we'll make the arrangements for you.
Are you going to send that to everybody?
Y'all got this in email today.
Okay, wonderful.
But yes, we will re-forward it to ensure you do see it.
I didn't see it,
No,
but,
I didn't see mine either, so, and I
Okay.
usually get that.
all right, wonderful,
Alrighty.
thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, county attorney update.
None outside of my staff report.
Great, thank you. Unfinished or new business? Everybody, unfinished or new business? None? Okay. Matters presented by the board? Start from you.
No, I really don't have anything that, other than the park, the opening of the park, everybody attended.
That was
Very well
great. It
done,
really
and,
was. Very nicely done.
Anne Marie, for all the people that participated in it, and Shanae and all of them that involved in it, and also for the chairman, cooking the hot dogs.
Yeah, it took me about four hours after I got home to get warm again, but that's another story.
Thank you for the windbreak.
Mr. Crittenden?
Nothing.
Mr. Bill Harris?
No, sir.
Mr. Williams, anything?
Well, I'm gonna go along with Wayne right quick. It was a good event and opened up the playground, and we still got a lot of work to do. But just like Wayne was saying, Don was out there frying them hot dogs in the wind. I said we're gonna have to do this thing again in the spring of the year. But yeah, ice cream truck too. I was there too. It was a good thing. I just imagine how it would be if you could open it up for the whole community of what you got.
Right.
And the second thing I did, Leonard Powell, he sponsored a trip for the sports, basketball girls and all of them that wanted to go. And we went down and did a tour on the University of Christopher Newport. And doing that, I always do the tour myself, and I meant to talk to the superintendent tonight, but Christopher Newport got what he called a Hall of Fame walkway. And we always talking at Millsix, basically, we ain't never done that, we just got something up. Wayne took his picture and put it in the trash can, so what I'm saying, it was a Hall of Fame hallway, and it was very good for the kids to go. And I say, well, where the parents at? You got, it looks nice. And what I learned out, and I forgot to tell Tracy, they said they was private at one time. I think Timmer was the one, because I was at the mill selling donuts. Anyway, it was private, but what they said now is private public. And I asked the gentleman, what you mean private public? He said, we treat it like a private university, but it's public. So when we meet on the 22nd and they want to do something, I said, can you make it private or public? Because you're thinking about the students more than you do your ideas. And I thought that was good. Then I took him to a game down at University of Hampton, and they saw it, and he fed them all, and he wanted to do it again because they had such a good time. They're going to take all he can get. So when you find somebody in the county that do things like that, I mean, it's worth being told, and that's what I done. A couple other things I probably forgot done.
I got you. Okay, and I don't have anything to add. I do appreciate Mr. Jesse coming up with what's the word I want? The vent for keeping wind off my cooking area. That was great, and the heater you brought was also great. Thank you very much for doing that at that event. Okay, we need a motion to go into closed session.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, so a couple of things real quick. First, the board's going to go into closed session, and we are going to utilize this room. To my knowledge, we will not be taking action when we come out of closed session, but we will have a public hearing regarding the capital improvements plan at 7 p.m. So that's for the public. So with that, gentlemen, you need a motion to convene in closed session pursuant to Virginia Code Sections 2.2-3711A3 and A8. This is so the board can have a discussion about the potential acquisition of real property for a public purpose, and where that discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect your bargaining position and your negotiating strategy, and so that you can consult with legal counsel about specific questions about the acquisition process and of the property subject to acquisition.
So moved. So moved by Mr. Jesse. To go into closed session, seconded by Mr. Bill Harris. No discussion needed. Roll call, please.
Mr. Jesse?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Bill Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Crittenden?
Yes.
Mr. Don Harris?